It's 9 o'clock. Quorum is present. All legal notices have been posted, and this court is duly called. Can I get a motion to open the court?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any unreadiness? All those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign of voting.
Aye.
Those who oppose, same sign. Chairs in the affirmative. I need a motion to adjourn the court for the May term.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any unreadiness? All those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign of voting.
Aye.
Those who oppose, same sign. Chairs in the affirmative. Need a motion to open the court for the June term.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. You
Those
know
who-
how coordinated we are?
I got you.
I'm just
We
happy.
work
Okay.
together at
I
this.
got
It's
this.
okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those who oppose? Chairs in the affirmative. Will the bailiff please open the court?
All rise. Dallas County Commissioners Court is now in session for the June 2017 term. The Honorable Commissioner John Wiley Price presiding. Please remain standing for the invocation.
Colleagues, members of the court, today we're pleased to have as our pastor and invocator, Pastor Damian Burr. Damian Burr is a minister, educator, and teacher who inspires, galvanizes, and promotes hope across the county, from churches to barbershops to public schools. A native of Cleveland, Ohio. I think somebody else is up there as well that he likes.
You know.
He attended American Baptist College with a BA. He got a Master of Divinity from Vanderbilt. And as a presidential scholar at ABC and Kelly Miller Smith Fellow at Vanderbilt, he helped facilitate various initiatives and discussions involving childhood education, juvenile justice, the prison industrial complex, black church studies, and cultural criticism. An extension of his undergraduate and graduate work has been incorporated through programs and published works via the Haynes Middle School Mentoring Program, the Bishop Michael Lee Graves Leadership Academy, Abington Press, and as co-founder of Connect Media, he has co-produced numerous documentaries addressing topics concerning the role of the church and the intellectual in the black community. He currently serves as the executive pastor of community development at the Friendship West Baptist Church here in Dallas, and we're so glad that he joins us. And I also have another message from you from a lady by the name of Marion Wright Edelman from the Children's Defense Fund. She said you were very integral, and so we welcome you to Dallas.
Thank you. Thank you. Shall we bow? God of love, hope, peace, power, and justice, we gather today under the canopy of your grace, thankful for an opportunity to discuss, to deliberate, to even make decisions that can either impede or create progress, decisions that can either open doors of opportunity or close doors of opportunity, decisions that can either turn into an inferno of hope or a tidal wave of despair. Thus, God, we now lift this body before you. We bring them before you as adjudicators. We bring them before you as decision makers. But also, God, we bring them before you as those who have been made in the image of God, those who have been made by love with the capacity to love, those who not only have a responsibility to the residents of Dallas County, but those who have a responsibility to friends and family members. And thus, with such an audacious and amazing task, we lift this body before you as public servants, those who oftentimes deal with the thanklessness of what it means to be a public servant, dealing with the stress and sleepless nights and even salacious attacks against their character. So now, God, as we adjourn this space, we ask that you provide them with insight, clarity, discernment, and even divine wisdom. We ask that you even provide the kind of Christ courage that allows them to demonstrate the compassion that moves individuals from hopelessness to hope, that moves individuals from despair to deliverance, that moves individuals from on the margins into places and spaces of opportunity. And as they make these decisions, we ask that those who are ultimately will deal with these decisions, we ask that you continue to bless them and strengthen them as they continue to be the agents of light, love, and liberation that you've called them to be. We ask all these things in the name of the radical revolutionary from the ghetto. In the name of Jesus, we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
And all the church said amen. Thank you, Pastor Derek. And good morning. Welcome to this edition of the Dallas County Commissioners Court. We have an agenda that has been posted. We will follow that agenda. We will subsequently go into a briefing session, which we will consider matters for a future court setting. That being the case, Commissioner Dr. Teresa Daniel has the first resolution.
Well, good morning. And would Don Mason and other those in here related to the AIDS Crisis Center please come forward? There we go. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
And whereas in 1987, at the height of the AIDS crisis that was devastating the Dallas gay community, founders Michael R. Meridian and Darrell M. Moore formed AIDS Services of Dallas, ASD, to provide people living with HIV/AIDS much-needed shelter, food, and care. And whereas AIDS Services of Dallas is the largest agency of its kind in Texas and has 4 residential facilities in Dallas County, and whereas, after facing early hardships in acquiring properties for housing, including discrimination, eviction, financial misdealing, and protests, the agency was able to establish its first residence, initially called A Place for Us, and now known as Ewing House. And whereas, while neither Mr. Moore nor Mr. Meridian lived to see the realization of their early efforts, ASD has provided thousands of people necessary and critical services for over 30 years. In that time, AIDS Services of Dallas has changed from losing 4 to 5 people a week to HIV/AIDS compared to now when ASD has parking issues at their residence. And whereas in 1989, lawyer Don Mason was hired to serve as executive director and is the longest-serving executive director of an AIDS agency in the United States. And whereas Mr. Mason states that providing people with a decent place to live gives them dignity and pride. Their lives have been enriched and their health improved. I'm proud that we're a top-notch program recognized throughout the country as among the very best. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Dallas County Commissioners Court does hereby congratulate and thank AIDS Services of Dallas for 30 years of service to the community and for all of the healing and caring provided to people in need. And I so move.
Second. Is there any unreadiness? All those in favor, let it be known by the usual sign of voting.
Aye.
Those who oppose, same sign. Chairs in the affirmative.
And Mr. Mason, welcome.
Pull that mic down now.
Like that?
That'll work.
Thank you, Commissioners. We very much appreciate your commemorating our 30th anniversary. It's been a tough road, but I think we've made a lot of progress over the years. We have a great showing here. This is not something I've done by myself. I've got an amazing staff, an amazing board, amazing residents that have always participated in the business of our agency. We appreciate very much the leadership of Zach Thompson and all of the people at Dallas County Health and Human Services for all that they've done to help us along the way. I remember the days in Dallas County when there was a certain judge, I think his name was Sterrett, and he wouldn't take any federal money. And I'm so glad things have changed because I don't know that we'd be here today if it weren't for the leadership of Dallas County and the city of Dallas and all of our local government in dealing with pass-through funds that are so critical to our residents. Thank you very much for this resolution. It's good to see you.
Don, of course, I remember you from both of your lawyer days. But also, you talked about amazing everything else except amazing neighbors, or at least a neighbor, a couple of neighbors.
That's right.
Well,
Who
actually, we have neighbors on our board. I'd like. There
where?
We have Lake Cliff neighborhood people on our board. We're very, very proud of our neighbors, and they've played an integral role in our development, too. From the early days, when Jesse Jackson crossed the picket line, no gays, no AIDS colonies in Oak Cliff. So we've come a long way, and I think we've also bettered our neighborhood. We've certainly made improvements, and it's going to be even better.
You've been a good neighbor, and I say that for purposes of the record because everyone in the neighborhood wasn't so welcoming, if you recall.
I don't. How can I forget?
And some of us did because we recognized that you were a good neighbor and you provided a benefit, for all of us. Some of us go back as far as repeal of 2106 and Tivita Nelson, and I know people are not going to remember all this history, but thank you for staying, because you've been in it for the long haul.
Yes.
You can talk about a few years there, but long before you got there, you were
You've been here.
in the community.
That's right.
Yes.
And who are some of the people you have with you?
My staff and my board and residents, raise your hand.
Yay.
Whoa.
Well, and thank you. And like Commissioner Price said, I remember when nobody wanted to have any of the Revlon apartments or any of the institutions in our neighborhoods. You have proved everybody, that not only have you have done a great job, when it came to put the neighborhood together for the redevelopment of Lake Cliff, but also because I remember meeting many, many times, at the facilities with the neighborhood association, and it's always been a welcoming community, like Commissioner Price just said, and it's because you stick together with all of us that we are, where we are today, and congratulations, Don. I know that you are a great neighbor and that your Spanish is doing so much better.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
A quick picture with you. Get a quick picture with you guys. Yeah, why don't you just come up in front here? That'd be great.
Right here. All of you.
Yeah, come on. We're all a part of this together, and it's because of all the work that you have done.
We're going to clear this place out.
No, you're going to clear this place up. Right? Good to see you. Glad you could make it here today.
Chairman of the board.
Well, good to see you. I'm not sure where much. I have visited all your places. This guy made sure that we saw
Oh,
it
he
all.
does, he does.
Absolutely. Yeah, you guys are going to come in. Come on. Come on. Come on, guys. You got to come in. Okay, Don, you're going to have to figure this one out. Is everybody in the picture now? Yes.
Thank you. Get up here.
I got Judge Moberg. He lucky if he know how to push the button.
Now, with respect, please.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh, there's Elias too.
Come on, Judge.
Thank you very much.
Well, don't go away.
Thank you, Judge Jenkins.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Always good to see you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Alva. Good to see you.
It's good to see you as well.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Judge,
Judge, we're going to go to.
Yeah, we're going to take Dr. Garcia next.
Okay.
This is the same.
Right, same.
Okay, and now we're going to jump a little bit out of order since we're also celebrating, LGBTQ Pride Month. So I'm going to ask all the representatives that are here as well. I know Lee Doherty is here, as well as some of the people from Resource Center and LULAC. I think I saw Elias Cantu also. So I will ask them to come forward to the microphone. Are they here? Yes, come on in. And the resolution reads as follows. Whereas June is Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Pride Month, LGBT Pride is the positive stance against discrimination and violence towards lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people to promote their self-affirmation, dignity, equality rights, increase their visibility as social group, build community, and celebrate sexual diversity and gender variance. Whereas the month of June was chosen as LGBT Pride Month to commemorate the Stonewall riots that occurred on June 1969, when the New York City Police Department raided the Stonewall Inn, which is a bar in the Greenwich Village neighborhood patronized by members of the LGBT community. And whereas the Stonewall riots that followed the raid marked the beginning of the modern LGBT liberation movement that transformed the oppression of people into calls of pride and action in the United States and worldwide. And whereas in Dallas County, the LGBTQ community has made great strides towards equality. These values are fundamental to our county's founding government principles and should be manifested in our laws and our practice, as we believe that the LGBTQ community has the right to feel safe, to not be discriminated, and to live without the threat of harassment and persecution. And whereas Dallas County is committing to be supportive and welcoming of the LGBTQ community to accomplish this, it has assigned a full-time LGBT liaison for the Sheriff's Department, and it has established an LGBT liaison and task force in the District Attorney's Office. It has ratified a full inclusive employee non-discrimination policy and has established equal domestic partner health benefit. And whereas on June 26, 2015, when the Supreme Court issued the Obergefell versus Hodge ruling recognizing that all citizens have the right to marriage, Dallas County showed extraordinary support, organization, and leadership. It became a beacon for the surrounding areas, and many traveled here to be married in a welcoming environment. And whereas, as we approach the second anniversary of this historic ruling, we must remember that there is more work to be done to ensure that all our community members are provided every right and privilege citizens of this nation and as the residents of Dallas County. So now, therefore, be resolved that the Dallas County Commissioners Court hereby congratulates the LGBTQ community for their achievements obtained in the last 48 years and recognizes the month of June 2017 as Pride Month in Dallas County. And I so move.
And I second pride, with pride.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Who wants to? Elias?
Hello, my name is Elias Cantu, and I'm the Deputy of LGBT for the North Texas LULAC. And I would like to take this time to thank the Commissioners Court for this proclamation making LGBT Pride Month in Dallas County and all of North Texas. And again, thank you for making this a safe space for our LGBT community. And most recently, I'm also working very closely now on a new project, a new program that's opened at Promise House, and that's for our LGBT youth homeless population. And so I'm working very hard and very closely also, Lee Daughtry and also Resource Center, Jelinski. We're all coming together to come together for this program for our youth and to provide a safe space for them as well. Again, thank you for the proclamation. And then also, it definitely is a new time for us also, because just 2 years ago was when things changed for us as far as marriage equality. And this weekend, I attended a wedding for one of my best friends and his partner. and we're going to be attending another one on June 23rd. So we are definitely have a lot to celebrate, and would not be without the help of our LGBT community and, of course, our allies. Thank you so much. Mil gracias.
Thank you.
What Elias said, and just thank you guys for the wonderful proclamation. And even, I know it's LGBT Pride Month, but even more than just sexual orientation or gender identity, I think this month and this time really marks a time for us to just be proud of who we are as human beings and allowing other folks to just be. And then I think we'll definitely continue towards a path of equality and an equitable life for everybody that's citizens of Dallas County and this great state of Texas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Judge, if we could, like to indulge, if we could suspend the agenda. We have Chief Justice Wright here and Judge Evans for item number 49 on the agenda. If you could take that out of order, Judge and
Well,
Commissioners.
I mean, I don't think, is it any need to take it out of order? I don't
know if there's any comment or
Well,
questions
yeah.
on the
Does
item.
anyone have, let me, I don't know if I can ask that.
Well, no,
without
you can't.
taking it.
No, but the question, if there is there any need to take it out? The questions were generated yesterday. They were answered satisfactorily. I didn't see anybody else querying the concerns. So, I mean, what's at issue? I mean, the appropriations. I asked about the reserve of where the money was coming from, and the state has given us what the state's going to give us.
And all of us who talked with Judge Evans know
Yeah,
that
and I
this
visited
was
over there,
delayed
so
for
I don't have any further questions.
Right.
No question.
No questions.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So there's no need to take it out of order. Just want to make sure that
Yeah.
Chief
Thank
Justice
you.
was
Is that satisfactory to you all?
Yeah.
Thank you all
We're
for being
fine.
here. I appreciate
We're
it.
fine. Okay. Are you going to do the second?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Let me go back to the Steve Mize. I'd ask Steve Mize and his delegation to please come forward. Even those people he has brought out of retirement. Luana, help me out.
You have yours?
Well, no, I got it. Hell, I just had it and I pulled it out. And hell, I know what here it is. Got so much shit.
I know.
Okay. Y'all here?
Yes.
Things all here? Okay.
Oh, there's
Whereas the Dallas County Commissioners Court takes special notice where an individual has given long and faithful service to Dallas County. And whereas Robert Stephen Steve Mize was born in Fort Smith, Arkansas, he attended W.W. Samuel High School in Dallas. He was raised by his aunt and uncle Charles and LaVon Schaefer, and he grew up in a household with his brother Mike and two older cousins. I got it. That's it. She wants to talk. That's all. And two older cousins, Ricky and Ronnie. And whereas Steve has been married to Patty Mize since June 1977, he has two daughters, Brandy and Christy, two adopted children, Michael and Kinsey, two son-in-laws, Carlton and Henry, and three grandchildren, Bella, Gabe, and the one who keeps talking, Misty Day. He enjoys volunteering, traveling, hunting, cooking, gardening, with grandchildren, visiting with Don Baber, an 85-year-old rancher in West Texas. Age has its wisdom, and spending time with his family at his lake house in Mineola, Texas, their future retirement home. And whereas Steve has traveled to 15 different states and outside of the U.S. to Mexico, Italy, Canada, and Nova Scotia, his special memories are Easter Sunday at the Vatican, an Alaskan cruise, including visiting the Arctic Circle, Arlington National Cemetery in Arlington, Virginia, and the 911 Memorial and Museum in New York. And whereas Steve is the president of his homeowners association, Lake Holbrook in Mineola, Texas, his special achievement, Young Offender Program in 2014, And whereas Steve began his Dallas County career on May 1st, 1987 with the Dallas County Facilities Department as a carpenter. And whereas on November 7th, 2001, he transferred to Public Service Program Department, promoted to Public Service Program Coordinator, where he currently served in his position with those increasing leadership responsibility. And whereas Steve has served Dallas County continuously and diligently for 30 years, now therefore be it resolved that the Dallas County Commissioners Court does hereby recognize and extend sincere appreciation to Robert Steve Mize for 30 years of faithful service and further express his best wishes on his retirement, and I so move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Steve?
Hey, first thing I'd like to do is thank the
Everything
court.
you've always wanted to say.
Yeah. Well, I was told a long time ago there's three speeches that you want to say, the one you think about, the one you say, and the one when you walk away, what you should have said. So I'll try to keep it short. First thing, thank the court, the county. You know, when I first got my check here 30 years ago, I looked at it, I thought I'm not going to be able to live on this, but here I am 30 years later and able to retire at the age of 60. So it's a pretty amazing thing. Thank you for our retirement. Got a lot of good friends that I've made at the county. Dear friends, I won't call their names because the list would be too long. Got a wonderful family. A wife that put up with me for 40 years. Couldn't ask to work with a better bunch of men, I call them that, because they've never refused to do anything I ever asked them to do. Had the humbling experience of working Katrina. If you weren't here for that, when you went into, I remember going into the convention center, and the parking lot, as far as you could see, was just people that had no place to go. I mean, they came with what they had on, and they were dumped, and they didn't know where they were going. And got to work with Zach. Had some good times too. It was around Christmas, and I was at the credit union. I happened to turn around. Barbecue lady. Commissioner Dickey was standing behind me. I'm sorry. You get up here, like I said, I get up here with this story and then it all changes. But anyway, what it was is, for y'all that know me, normally the long pants on me are a very rare thing, so it happened to be cold that day, so I happened to turn around and I said, "Hi, Commissioner," and she said, "Oh, hi, Steve. I didn't recognize you with pants on." All I could do was just kind of look at her, and she just kind of blushed, and I walked away.
I would comment, but
But anyway, I've had a real good time here. I mean, it's like any job. It's had its frustrations and moments, but through the long run, Dallas County has put my daughters through college, my wife through college. It's entitled me to retire before the age of 65. It's been a great career. And, I'm gonna miss a lot of the people. I can't say that I'll miss the working part, but I've got. People said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "My wife has me plenty to do for about the next 2 years." So I was able to to buy me another lot. So I do have a garage or another place to go in case I get tired of it, or she gets tired of me. Anyway, but most of all, I'd like to say thanks to everybody.
thank you.
Patty, my oldest daughter, Brandy, the youngest daughter, Christy, who's the mama of the new baby. In case y'all don't know, Christy has worked for the county for 12 years, so she's another government employee, and her husband just is officially now a Dallas fireman. He graduated about a month ago, right? 2 months ago? 2 months ago.
All right.
So I have a couple of family members that are going to continue to be in government service. My crew, we got a good bunch of guys. One of my best friends, Vanetta. That's it.
Well, one of the things, Steve, and Commissioner Cantrell is not here And I think I said this the other day, Zach, you weren't there, but I don't know. And by the way, some of the people who came out of Katrina now works for us here in Dallas County.
Yeah, too.
I don't know of a more horrifying experience than to leave home and not be able to return. And then the government places you on a bus, destination unknown.
True.
I remember Commissioner Cantrell and I mobilized to meet the buses at a place called Big Time. And that was going to be logistically staging. What was interesting is the number of people who boarded that bus and thought they were going to be here in Dallas and wound up having to reboard the bus for destination, again, unknown, Iowa, Dakota. I was listening to the call, and it was just amazing. But then those who remained here, those that weren't at the convention center was at a place called Reunion Arena. And we mobilized enough corporates to be able to get basic supplies. Zach moved in, and people who didn't have their meds, we were having to get local pharmaceuticals to get basic meds. And of course the paperwork for meds is unbelievable, but made it happen. And then we took and depopulated a place called Decker. Took all of the people in custody and moved them into other facilities and turned Decker into a housing unit. And then from there, a judge by the name of Margaret Kelleher came out along with us, and we took, and for the next, seemed like forever, we dispersed people across this city, finding mattresses, finding places for them to live, to reside. That had to be horrifying. And I just can't even fathom. And regardless of whatever happens to us in our life, you just can't fathom that happening.
Absolutely.
Women and children and men. And so I just want to thank you. I remember you and crew, a lot of you standing back there, we were on the ground. We were on the ground 18 hours a day for the next, it seemed like a couple of months.
It went for a while,
yeah. It didn't look like it wasn't going to ever go away. Just wasn't going to ever go away. So thank you. You know, what it does is just puts us all in perspective in terms of, you know, how blessed we are, but for the grace of God.
Absolutely.
And I think we need to remember that every day. But thank you.
Thank
And
you.
how everyone makes a difference when we all come together. And I remember being in the council at that time, and we couldn't do it without you guys. We couldn't do it without Zach Thompson. We couldn't do it without the county being there every single step of the way. And I know, while I didn't know you at the time, I knew you were there. And thank you all for the job that you do every day for Dallas County.
Thank you.
I just
Thank
wanted to say, too, from the very momentous experiences that you've participated in, to just always being ready and saying, well, you know, I'm not sure how I'm going to get that done, but I will. I'm not sure exactly where those parts are going to be found, but we'll manage. And between you and all of your staff, the job always got done. It was always done well, completely. And so my respect for just somebody who says, you know what, maybe not this way, but you know, we will always get the job done, and you always have, and that is so much, just so very much appreciated, because I know that you make our job a lot easier, and we recognize that there is no way that we could do this without you and with all your leadership with your group.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
One
And
other
to
thing
you.
comes to mind that I failed to remember, the great flood of the records building.
Oh, 2010.
No, we're trying to forget that.
2010.
That can't happen again.
Yeah, but my point about that was I got to see different departments come together, and I don't know if y'all remember when that took place. That building was hot. There was no
2010.
electricity. They managed to get some fans to blow the hot, stinky
That's
air
right.
around,
Yes, it was.
and people literally brought the files out of the basement along with community services, sorted it, and there was never any complaints. I mean, you know, it was hot and everything else, but they got the job. So county employees will fall together when the time comes necessary, and I got to see and experience it. And Donna Billman, I will disclose where we buried those papers.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. My other grandchildren want to go skating today, the first week of vacation.
Oh, adorable.
You're so cute, though. And you say, good thing. How are you doing? I haven't seen you in a
You're smaller. You're gonna have to come a little close.
Yeah, somebody come up here.
There's-
Pull that mic. Hey. Sound like Judge Jenkins. Hush.
I'm not the one doing all the talking right now, Judge.
Oh, it's quiet. Yeah, I know. Okay. Yeah, I understand. I got it.
She's going to be mouthy just like that one.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
You're going to be so missed.
See that? Well, she said that.
I'm going to be late. That's a moving permit. I'm going to sell our Dallas home and probably find a one-bedroom, one-time. My kids
Yes,
are
I know. We just hear her.
Thank you.
Human trafficking.
I'm gonna do Star on the Rise. Okay. Well, congratulations again, Mr. Miles. You will be missed. And our next resolution, colleagues, members of the audience, is the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I know the President Rick Ortiz and Sagrario Ortiz are here today. And it's about the scholarships that the Hispanic Chamber is giving this week. So the resolution reads as follows. Whereas the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce was founded in September of 1939 with a vision to develop, promote, and protect Mexican businesses in the Greater Dallas area. The mission was to ensure the advancement and economic growth of the Mexican businesses in the community. More than 7 decades ago, with the vision and mission articulated, its founders determined to improve and alter social and economic conditions, and they set their ideas into action. And whereas in 1983, the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce initiated the Stars on the Rise Scholarship Program in an effort to transform the lives through education. Every year since then, meritorious scholars are identified through a selection process that brings together the passion and dedication of the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce volunteers, partners, and stakeholders. And whereas for 34 years, the Stars on the Rise Scholarship Awards program has invested in our future community leaders by developing over 3,200 deserving area scholars afford their college education through the generous contributions of the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber's corporate and university partners, as well as many small businesses and individual donors. And whereas this year the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber is able to award close to $2.5 million in scholarships to nearly 300 students, the 34th annual Stars on the Rise Scholarship Awards reception honoring the 2017 scholarship recipients will be held on June 8, 2017 at El Centro College at 5:30 p.m. with the awards presentations at 7 p.m. And you all are invited. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Dallas County Commissioners Court does hereby recognize and congratulates the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the 2017 Stars on the Rise Award recipients, and I so move.
And I second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Ortiz.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to start off by saying thank you very much to the commissioners and for having us here this morning and for the recognition. I think, Commissioner Garcia, you took the words right out of my mouth in reading that. The invitation is extended to all of you. We hope that we could get some of the scholars here this morning, but it's hard enough to get them to attend the event sometimes. So, they've got a lot going on right now as they graduate, but we hope that you all will be able to join us. Like you mentioned, there's about 300 of them, and we're awarding a little over $2.3 million in scholarships. That's quite a bit of work, and so I think it's important also to recognize the hard work that our team has done. Really, it's a team of 7 altogether, and we obviously work with volunteers, partners, and anybody that wants to pitch in a hand. So we're very grateful for that. Understanding that you came from the chamber, serving on the board, it's great to see you up here, and we appreciate the fact that you'll be our keynote speaker. So thank you for agreeing to do that, and that's more incentive for everybody to attend on Thursday night. And I'm glad that Sagrario, who's our team leader really on this particular project, is here today, because I think the work that she does and our team does, it's a year-round program now. It's not something that just happens in the spring. It's something that begins in the early fall and ends in the late summer. So she still has all the awards and everything to go through. We have the event, obviously, but there's never enough, really, is what we find out. Is you mentioned that there's a little over 3,400, 3,500 total since 1982, 30 million, but each year we get about 3,000 people applying, so there's always room for more. So that's why it's good that the recognition is here. So thank you again, and we really truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Rick. And so someone that comes from the Hispanic Chamber, you're right. I started serving the chamber many years ago. And it was the board of directors, the ones that encouraged me to run for office, believe it or not. And at the time, I remember thinking, I'm a Latina, I'm a female, I'm an immigrant, and I have a huge accent. Are you sure you're choosing the right candidate? And they say yes. And, who would say, here I am several years after, still working with the Hispanic Chamber. And I want to thank you because I've seen what has come out in the last, 30 years from the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And it couldn't happen without your leadership, couldn't happen without people committed to help the next generations, to be better and better. And what a better way than through education. I know I wouldn't be here without that. So thank you, Mr. Ortiz Sagrario. I know I'll be there on Thursday, and looking forward to continue to work with your great organization that continues to make the difference in many, not only the Latino community, but other communities as well.
The whole community. So thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. And would you mind a picture so we can post it as well? You want to come back? It's probably better. This way with the chairs.
Okay, somebody can sit here. Who wants my seat?
I'll take it. Sure.
Everyone else does.
And the last resolution today is for someone that not only has done a fantastic job in Dallas County, but also in the community through an organization called It's Going to Be Okay. And I'm going to invite Tanya Stafford, which is here with us today, and her guests to...
They're working.
Okay, hey, I understand that.
They're working on the wall.
But I want to thank you, Tanya, for everything you've been doing with your organization. I know it's about saving lives, and what a better way to recognize your efforts than what we're about to do this coming weekend. So, the resolution reads as follows. Whereas human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery in which traffickers target vulnerable populations, including men, women, children, citizens and not citizens, forcing them into servitude and or the sex trade. And whereas victims of human trafficking suffer severe emotional, psychological, and physical terrors at the hands of their captors, who instill fear to keep them slaves. Traffickers typically use multiple means to control their victims, including beating, rape, isolation, drug and alcohol dependency, document withholding, and psychological and emotional abuse. And whereas Ms. Tanya Stafford, a survivor of human trafficking, knows firsthand the problems of living in this situation, she is dedicated to the justice issues that serve as the underlying causes of modern-day slavery, exploitation of women, men, and children. And whereas, in her vision to alleviate the traumatic occurrences of rape, physical abuse, and sexual molestation that the victims of human trafficking face, Mrs. Stafford founded the nonprofit organization It's Going to Be Okay in 2014. And whereas the mission of It's Going to Be Okay, Inc. is to create a just world where all vulnerable children and adults are safe, respected, and valued. It's Going to Be Okay carries out the mission through education, research, advocacy, and collaboration, and it works with the students, educators, law enforcement, healthcare, community leaders, and faith-based or community organizations as well. Their goal is to help end human trafficking and cyber exploitation in Dallas County. And whereas this Saturday, June 10, It's Going to Be Okay Inc. will host their first annual Stop the Traffic 5K in an effort to raise awareness and donations as they continue to educate and eradicate human trafficking one survivor at a time. And whereas It's Going to Be Okay demands that no one else walks a mile in their shoes. They prefer that you lace up your most comfortable pair of gym shoes and walk or run for this great cause. By walking, running, donating, or volunteer at the Stop the Trafficking 5K, you will help restore the sense of hope for the vulnerable victims of human trafficking in Dallas County. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Dallas County Commissioners Court does hereby commend It's Going to Be Okay Inc. as they host their first annual Stop the Traffic 5K and wishes them much of their success in this great effort. And I so move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner Price. I love all of y'all. As she said, we don't ask you to walk a mile in our shoes. We just ask you to come out and put on your most comfortable shoes.
Tanya, pull the mic.
Yeah, I'm a little short. We ask you to not walk a mile in our shoes, but come lace up your most comfortable shoes to join us. This will be Dallas's first successful human trafficking 5K, so I'm really excited about it. I'm humble beyond thanks to Telemunda, Erykah Badu's backup vocalist that will be unveiling It's Going to Be Okay official song. So we were really excited about that. And of course, you know, Shania Davis is near and dear to my heart, and we will have a balloon release in her honor. Her birthday is June the 14th. So, and we ask you to keep her father in prayer as well. His son was killed last Wednesday. So he will not be attending. We were really struck by that. that was a tragedy for us. It's going to be okay. So please keep him in prayer. Keep us in prayer as we continue this fight. This fight is not over, and it's just not here in another country or somewhere beyond. It's here in Dallas County, and everybody can do something. You all can do something to stop this tragedy here in Dallas County. So come on out, lace up. If you not, participate, you can donate. Yes, I do say donate. Go onto the website or go on to Stop the Traffic site to donate as well, because your donations help us to keep the awareness going, and the ultimate vision is to provide safe homes for the young women and girls that are on the street today. We have over 400 teens on the street a day. So we need your help and your support, and other organizations like mine that exist need the help and support of everybody. Everybody can do something. So don't just sit there. If you're not busy on Saturday, we have walk-up registration. There will be a wonderful group of UT Southwestern nurses that will be serving y'all. So come on out and see them as well. And I'm really just appreciative of all the help and support from all of you to take on this task as well with me and for the cause. So thank you. And knowing that I'm a survivor, I have survived a lot. That's why I say I don't ask anybody to walk a mile in my shoes, because you would throw them back, because you couldn't really walk what I walked and talk what I talk. So I'm really appreciative and grateful to be here and alive today, and a wonderful mother and grandmother. And I don't look like a grandmother, but I am a grandmother of 4, and they're going to be walking with me as well.
Good.
So thank you. I appreciate
Ms.
it.
Tanya, can you remind everywhere where are we meeting and what time we start, and that everybody's invited with their pets as well?
Yes, the pets are, every family member is invited. We always say that. June the 10th, it's going to start right at the Ron Kirk Bridge. It will go down into the Trinity Levee. The markers will be there. And for you runners, yes, you will be timed, because I have had calls and they want to start first, so you can have the trail. We will be walking behind you. I do run, but I'm not going to run on that day. So come on out at the Ron Kirk Bridge. It starts at the Ron Kirk Bridge and goes down. And then it's going to be a concert afterwards. So you will be entertained. There is plenty to do, plenty of food. We have vendors. It's been amazing. It has been an amazing, overwhelming support. Bounce houses for the kids, face painting. There's going to be so much to do. So please come on out, support us. The lowriders is going to be there too. Lowriders and the girls. Lowriders, girls and the men. So it's going to be an amazing event. So I'm really excited about that. 13 cars are going to be delivered. So
And Dallas County has a team.
Dallas County has a team. Telemunda has a team.
So
There's
no
so many.
competition. I mean, it's basically about raising
Yes.
money and create awareness.
Walk. And to be healthy too. So
There you go, Ms. Tanya.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stafford. We look forward to seeing you this coming June 10th, Saturday,
Yes.
at the Ron Kirk Bridge.
Yes. Thank you.
And I have the last 2 resolutions today. The first is to ratify a resolution that was read at our last meeting, but didn't make it onto our agenda in time. And that was the Trauma Awareness Month that Parkland came for last month, and I so move. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And the last resolution is Employees of the Month. Will our Employees of the Month please come forward? This month's Employees of the Month include Donald McKinney from Facilities, Lieutenant Charles Klepelid from Sheriff's, Vicki Buchanan from the Information Technology, John DeSantis from Information Technology, Daniel Areza from Health and Human Services, Saleha Fahim from Health and Human Services, Mario Garza II from Health and Human Services, Carla Gilkey from the District Clerk's Office, Maria Gabby Morales from the Tax Office, and Shannon Wells from Juvenile. And the resolution reads as follows. Whereas Dallas County employees are hardworking, dedicated, and play a vital role in achieving the goals and objectives set forth each year by the Commissioners Court. Most employees perform above expectations and ensure that Dallas County continues to be a regional leader and a destination of choice for residents and businesses. And whereas Dallas County Commissioners Court authorized the creation of the Employee Recognition Program in 2012 to encourage recognition of dedicated employees who represent the best and the brightest of our workforce. And whereas the Dallas County Employee Recognition Program is consistent with the county's approved administrative plan, under which the county seeks to operate and be operationally a model governmental entity. These employees represent the exemplar employees Dallas County hopes to recruit and retain. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Dallas County Commissioners Court does hereby salute the following employees for being selected as Employee of the Month in April 2017. I don't think it's April, but that's what it says. So I'm whatever his name is, Ron Burgundy. I read the piece of paper. I think that's June. For their respective departments, and offers best wishes for continued success at Dallas County. And I so move.
And I second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody want to say anything?
On that happy note, if I could take just a moment of personal privilege, I'd like to introduce a new employee to Dallas County. And this is Dr. Rajan K. Kunjaberi, and he is going to join the IT team as the new Dallas County Chief Information Security Officer. He comes with many years of varied experience, so we welcome you to your new family. Thank you very much for coming.
First presentation today is from Health and Human Services. Do you have anything on mosquitoes?
Send an email saying I'll do it.
Missed your email. Apologize. All right. So Commissioner Price, you have a couple of presentations.
Start with judicial management. This is a report that all of you should have received by now. You know, this is basically an annual report. The report basically does a comparison. Unfortunately, I guess there was not enough wherewithal to deal with it in the past legislature. Do you have that on the screen there? You know, what it shows is it has a snapshot from 2008 to 2016 when we began to deal with these reports. There are a lot of people who will advocate and say that they're doing certain performances. However, look what was happening, and now in the district civil courts, you don't quite have the same challenge. In 2008, you had about 16,000 cases filed. 2016, still 16,000 cases filed. When you get to the total cases that were disposed of, 1,200 in 2008, about 1,400 in 2016. Pending cases, about 11,000, 2008, about 12,000 in 2016. So when you look at the per case pending courts, you know, apparently the district civil courts are functioning as intended and probably as we kind of continue to expect them. The next is the county courts at law. And unfortunately, neither this court or the legislature, had the wherewithal to be able to take and sift these numbers. In 2007, we had 17,000 cases filed. In 2016, we got 5,800 cases, a 66%. That's 2/3 difference between what happened in 7 and 16. Per court in 7, you had about 3,500. Today, you've got less than 1,100. And of course, you can look at the number of cases that were disposed of in 2007. and I just found it interesting. I don't know how they disposed. I guess they had carryover cases. Because they disposed of more in 2007 than were filed, but 18,000 cases were disposed of, and only 6,000 in 2016. In the final analysis, in 2007, you had 2,100 cases per court that were pending. Today, you got 945. The total pending case, you got a 55% disparity. We still have 5 courts. The cost associated, that's the only thing we did not pair out with regards to this, but the cost per case is significant. But keep in mind, we're still operating the same number of courts. You know, they're doing 2/3 less work. When you get to the Dallas, the district criminal courts and county criminal courts, this is a little different. And what's interesting about this is that in 2008 you had 36,000 cases filed. 2016 you only got 22,000. When you get right down to it, you got a higher net cost in 16 than you had in 2008. You got a 19,239,000 cost in 2016, where in 2008, with more cases, you had $10,362,000. And Ryan, we need to dove off. I'm going to deal with this, but it's costing us almost twice as much in the district criminal courts today with regards to operating.
Correct. You know, some of that's going to be pay raises, but clearly not that much.
You didn't get that much pay raise. Right.
Period of time when we weren't giving pay raises in that 2008 through 2012 period. So it is a decrease in workload, but you have not seen a decrease in the cost of operating the courts.
Well, I just want the court to be aware that, like I said, we've almost doubled our costs. We have not doubled pay raises.
And so where are the other costs?
It's really, and I did back out jail costs just because gives a cleaner picture for this, and it's going to be in the fact of court-appointed attorneys and public defenders. I mean, that's where the majority of these costs are in these courts. The courts themselves have a judge, a court reporter, a court coordinator.
So that'd be the same?
Yeah. So it's going to be the attorney payments.
Well, you know, one of the things that's happening is, and especially when we deal with these specialty courts and programs in Dallas County, there are a lot of concerns dealing with this whole thing of operation. In the felony courts, we've got basically 15 specialty courts.
With varying activities, of
Well,
course.
I got that. But the problem is that when you take and you back in the cost, you're getting some of the cost in this bottom line number here.
Right.
And so as a result, you know, what we're not getting is best practices, number one, and Judge Birmingham and I agreed to talk about it and meet, but they're not subscribing to best practices in regards to these courts and these specialty courts.
Correct. I do believe the state, through CSED, is doing a review of the specialty courts, but there is certain state requirements for them. Each of these specialty courts have to meet in order to be able to recognized at the state level. And I believe most of them are at this point recognized by the state, but not all of them.
And it is my understanding that the governor's office plans on pairing in this regard with regards to these specialty courts.
My understanding is they are looking at putting in additional requirements which would decrease the number of courts, yes.
In the misdemeanor courts, one of the things that's happened, we've got 8 specialty courts. And when you look at the misdemeanor courts, in 2008, you had 52,000 cases filed. 2016, you got 34,000. So you got a third less cases. In 2008, we were looking at a negative of about $5 million with regards to operation. Today in 16, it looks like $4 million in terms of positive. And so you want to, for the record,
For the record, this is really interesting because what this meant is in 2008, the misdemeanor courts produced revenue in excess of the cost of operating the courts. And we've watched that revenue decrease over the last 10 years roughly, and to the point now where they are costing more than they are bringing in. And you can see that when you look at the total revenue, where it was $12.6 million in 2008, and it's at $5.1 million in 2016 for a 59% decrease, but yet the disposed cases only decreased by 23%. And that is a change in the behavior of the judiciary and the way they are assessing fines and court costs. Some would argue socially that's a good thing because generally the criminals do not have revenue or funds, and you're taking funds from somebody who's already poor and requiring them to put in fines, but that is a philosophical discussion. The other real issue here is the DWIs, because obviously DWIs, typically those individuals do have funds and do hire private attorneys, but yet that we've seen a decrease in the revenue as it relates to DWIs as well.
Well, the philosophical discussion is you have a system set up, and those that commit crimes and get convicted should pay for some of that, bear some of that load, and not the taxpayers that are law-abiding citizens. So that's the philosophical difference.
well, but one of the things, and again, one of the things we're being tasked with in the state of Texas and across this country is we have not had a risk assessment tool in place to be able to determine who in fact can pay.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the issues. I know
I'm
where
talking about bonds. I'm talking about.
not just bonds. Not just. I hear what you're saying. It's not just bonds, Commissioner.
Well, there's some that doesn't necessarily agree with that. In other words, somebody that commits a crime, if you're poor, you shouldn't have to pay a fine. In other words, you're not paying to support the system that the law-abiding citizens have to fund to take care of that person. Well, they ought to have to do community service. They ought to have to do something that pays their load,
and that's
their
what
shared load.
And that's what we're doing with community service. And again, that's helped to not only manage the population, but to be able, for the judges to be able to divert those individuals into that program.
I understand, but they use that same rationale on truancy cases.
What do you mean on truancy cases?
The poor can't afford to pay a fine for their child not going to school.
Well,
so it's the same principle.
Well, but the difference is though in this case, we're able to divert them into a program, and the judges who have cooperated, we've been able to see that. I mean, the legislature sets the cost associated with the community service and paying off fines.
So the taxpayers have experienced over a $9 million difference between 2008 and 2016. And we're saying that's okay. I mean, we need to really cut out all fines and put them into a program and let them do some community service.
But then isn't one of the changes too is that we are now we're just on the verge of having an assessment tool that will give us something better.
This is a very good interesting discussion because there is going to be an opportunity for there to be much better information being provided to the judiciary through the pretrial release program, where you're going to do that risk assessment, but included in there is going to be a financial assessment. We're going to interview everybody for a financial assessment. I agree with the Commissioner. It all depends on what they choose to use the information, do with the information. But that information will be available for when they do set the bonds. That information will be available when they do determine whether or not they're going to get a court-appointed attorney or if they have to go get their own attorney. And that information will be available at the point of the time they're setting the fines and court costs.
Well, perhaps the judge could assess the fine and the cost, and then we have a collections department that makes that determination and see how long it takes for someone to pay it out, or if they need to do community service, those kinds of things. So, it's,
there is.
You're making an argument that really doesn't hold water, in my opinion.
I'm hopeful.
Well,
but I mean, I think the whole point, we have been reviewing these numbers since last year.
Correct.
The reality has been, is like Commissioner Cantrell just say, we haven't put a mechanism together, that actually assess how much it costs to Dallas County taxpayers. So it can be I mean, and I know that, when we talk about justice has to be fair, but, a mechanism that actually makes sense in assessing how much is the cost.
Well, that's what
And that's what we're talking about, right, Commissioner Price?
Well,
I mean, that's
what
why
the
you
whole
put this here.
That's the reason I'm bringing it up, and that's what the whole CSCD, and one of the things you're going to find, again, we've been talking about a risk assessment tool for
Forever.
But we're finally at the point of having something that makes sense
We're
and is
finally pushed to
nationally
the point.
acceptable. And
Yes.
Yeah, we're pushed to the point.
And the judges have agreed, and that's a great step forward. And I hope that we could continue that momentum. Judge Birmingham has already requested that I meet with him and several of the other judges later this week so that we can continue to dialogue about what we can do differently and how we can do things better as a system as a whole, and also how to really move forward with this pretrial release program as we need to have it put in place so that we can get the
while
proper
it's headed
information.
as pretrial, the assessment tool is designed to be able to utilize throughout the system.
Right.
It's not just we keep talking about bonds and pretrial.
Did we put it into collections? Does collections have it right now?
The collections.
I didn't see anything in the briefing, nothing in the briefing that talked about putting it on the back end of the system. It's all on the front end.
You are correct, Commissioner. The system we had currently is where the judges assess a court costs and fines. The individual makes a determination if they can or cannot pay up front day one. Then they go into collections, and there's various tools that the collections department has. We're hopeful that rather than making a broad brush determination of whether or not what they're going to do for a DWI, that there be some usage of the data at the assessment part. Because right now they're not assessing it, not giving collections the opportunity to collect. They're just not assessing as much.
But that's a philosophical difference in the judges right now, that they don't believe fines rehabilitate people.
I don't know that that is a fair blanket statement.
I've been told that.
For the judges.
Well, I've been told that. So.
I think the judges are looking at it more holistically. I think you have to recognize over the last 3 years, our crime rate is at rates we haven't seen since the 1960s. Our jail pop has shrunk from 7,000 5 years ago to 53 to 5,400 now.
And yet our costs go up.
And our costs go up. To have a system and to have less people going through it, yes, our costs are going up, but some costs are going up. But then when you look at the fact that our jail pop is shrinking, it's hard to put all these costs into one bucket. And I think that's something Commissioner Price was getting at earlier. You could say, well, we didn't fine this person $1,500, and therefore we lost that $1,500 that they may have not have had the ability to pay anyway. But if they found the ability to pay it in ways that were detrimental to society, either by reoffending or strapping their grandmother and others for money, that may, and it's the judge who's the best person to look at this, who's looking at the whole situation in front of him or her, that may not be in the best interest of society, the victim, or the family. In other situations where the person is in a different situation, a big fine may be the way that the judge should go, but we've got to give them the tool and then the flexibility to use it.
But we've created, some of this is our fault. I'm going to tell you, and I know nobody's going to want to hear this, MOU.
Absolutely.
MOU.
Shut it down.
For people, that is a program for people, poor people cannot afford an MOU program. Right. And look who's in the MOU program. Look how much money. What's the balance in the MOU now, right now?
It's around $1.3 million in the MOU program.
But poor people can't afford an MOU program.
And what does MOU stand for?
Memorandum of Understanding. This is where
Memorandum of Understanding with the District Attorney's Office, wherein they get a chance to do what I call SIP. And it has nothing to do with the President District Attorney. We did that with Watkins. It's the same deal. People, when you profile that program, you've got people, even in the public defender's office, and I know is Miss Richardson here? Because I've had I know we've had some tete-a-tete because I got people who were probably eligible but couldn't afford to go into the program, correct?
And why couldn't they afford?
Because you know what the cost is of an MOU program?
The MOU program is typically $500 plus whatever programs that they have to pay
I
up
can
front.
tell you this, it's going to cost a whole lot less to get into the MOU program than to just go through the system. So,
I mean, no,
absolutely.
no, not
you
at all.
get a DWI, you get,
Richard, come here. No.
What's the typical case that goes through the MOU? Theft?
It's going to be your first time thefts, your first time.
DWIs?
I'm not
No,
sure if
no,
the
DWIs not eligible.
DWIs?
They're not eligible.
So what are their offenses?
These are minor offenses. Usually they don't have priors, but if they successfully complete the program, then the case is actually dismissed. So it serves a couple of purposes. For those who are first-time offenders or minor offenders, they don't end up with a conviction on their record.
Right, I
The
understand the
MOU,
program.
they're paying
What type of offenses?
theft cases,
Okay.
trespassing cases, things of that nature. And typically, in a lot of those cases, those people don't have any funds. The money goes to the DA's office and to the probation department.
So Ryan, can you give me a list of what's acceptable for the MOU? Because it
DA's
was
office.
much far-ranging than just theft and criminal
It
trespass.
used to be, but with this current administration,
Okay,
fewer.
she cut it? Under
Well,
Watkins
they're
it
still
was,
going.
I guarantee you.
Well,
It was wide.
In the past, more cases were qualifying cases. They've reduced the number of people that are eligible for those programs either by case, and of course, even if they're eligible by case, if they can't afford to come up with the money, then they can't get it, and they have to go through the normal course, which could be pleading to the case and getting jail time, or could be being on probation. But the benefit, of course, is that you don't end up with a conviction on your record and you get access to services, which is part of what you're required to do.
yeah, and go ahead.
Just because we are moving off a little bit of the field on this, while this is just looking at judicial costs.
I got
Do remember, 36% down on there and 34% down, but no DA staff has been removed.
I got it. Oh,
No
I'm getting
county
ready to
clerk
go
staff
there.
has been removed. No district clerk staff is. I mean, so you've got a lot of other people that this impacts when you have these decreases.
I'm coming. Believe me, that's the reason I said I want judicial management report right before budget. Again, that's when we're talking about these courts. You know, we got courts over there that went from 17,000 8 years ago or 7 years ago to 5,000. Staff is the same.
Yes.
Okay? So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying. My
Where are
colleague.
the
you know?
JP courts in this system?
But
How
we
many
did,
what?
Where are the JP courts
So
in this system?
the JP report wasn't ready for me to be able to put it on here,
No.
but I mean,
Because it
they
does
are
impact
part
some of this,
Yep, they
right?
are part of the municipal,
But
judicial
again,
management report.
this is, I would like to say that this is an update. We've seen some of these numbers, they continue to decrease. So what we're doing now is start looking, right, Commissioner Price just said, right ahead of budget on what are the decisions that we're going to have to take. And of course, we'll see where the legislature goes, this afternoon with SB2. So with that being said, I think it's work in progress. Thank you, Ms. Richardson, and thank you to CJEF and everyone, and Commissioner Price, for these numbers. I mean, we need to have a clear picture before we start making the decisions that are going to, really change the criminal justice system.
But one thing I want to join Commissioner Cantor. See, the problem with a lot of this stuff is people use this for politics versus the government. They talk about, they have certain specialty courts and they've created all these specialty courts and they're diverting people. Again, that's the reason I talked about best practices. Most of them are not subscribing to best practices. And when we do that, we let them play this, I call it the concierge game, with regards to these courts. And the next one up, we talk about the county criminal,
Family filings were up a little bit, but you'd expect that would be fairly static given the type of cases that are filed there. There's your juvenile courts. They're even down even further.
That's exactly right. Juvenile courts are down further. Look at the cost associated with it, the population. And see, again, at what point in time are we going to deal, with these cases? Look what happened in 2008 versus 2015.
That is a 16 number. I apologize. That is a typo.
Okay, did I say 15 or 16?
No, you said 15, but
Okay,
because it says
okay.
15 on the slide.
Still.
Okay, still, you know, you're down 55%. You're down 55%. And
Have there been
then,
statutory changes during the same time period that may impact
No.
what our responsibilities are as related to?
not here. This is not a
There
statute,
has-
no.
No, because we haven't changed the age in which.
No,
you know, the-
that's exactly right.
I mean, it's a question,
No,
well,
it's-
where's
it's
the
a-
environment?
it
We
is-
have to
yeah.
figure that piece out too.
But, you know, and of course, in the juvenile courts, you have masters, you have the detention hearings, and all those are, you know, are impacted when you have see this type of data.
Right. But again, they've created some of those same specialty courts
Yes, they have.
as well.
And a variety of specialty programs, yes.
It's specialty
And there's
pro-
clearly been a different viewpoint in the way that juvenile justice is administered, with much more focus on treatment and less focus.
But what
Have
we
been
have
statutory
done,
impacts.
what we have done, and I'm going to talk about staff in just a minute. What we've done with that is we've shifted. We've shifted populations down, filings down, but staffing has not been decreased other than those few you took
Yeah.
out.
And of course, you know, the staffing has been decreased some, not as much as some would believe, and there has been a shift in things. But the real question to me would be is where does the recidivism data show? You know, does it show that when we shift somebody into a specialty program, are they getting a better outcome than than prior? And so that's some information that I know Dr. Smith has been working on and does have extensive recidivism data, and I'm sure would be more than glad to put together some discussions for those type of programs.
Well, and one of the things, you know, all this dadgum data, I'm going to say this, and probably not going to be well received. It depends on who's curating the data.
That is correct.
Okay.
The recidivism data is collected and administered through the juvenile department, but I do believe that information is still provided to the state, and so the state does have an ability to review it.
So is a certain doctor, you know, with the name, who's basically harnessed all of our data, and then when I go to get some of that data, I ask for that data. He tells me I can have that data. It's our data. I can have it for about $250,000. It's our data.
But is there a standard procedure on the reporting and the collection of that information?
But you can put those standards procedure. I think that's the point of Commissioner Price. You can change the variables of the procedure and have a different result. With that being said, I think Mr. Brown just hit it on the nail. I mean, it's a baseline. That's all we know. And at this point, we have to follow that baseline, Commissioner Price.
Well, no. A lot of it is how we're massaging and navigating within the budgets. See, either the budgets require, either there's a staffing issue. One of the reasons across the enterprise last year that we took out a number of positions, and juvenile I think is up next for me to talk about, is because they haven't been filled in several years. We said we got a shortage, and the dadgum positions hadn't been filled.
And that's because as the population of the juvenile department had decreased, rather than going in and immediately eliminating all the positions, we left them vacant in the case the population did increase in the future. And then ultimately turned around and didn't fund them.
Several years.
This has been a trend down for several years, absolutely.
Since
2008 at least.
But the concerns that are large now are associated with staff.
Some of the issues that I believe you've been reading in the newspaper are being talked about in staff, and I do believe you've asked for a variety of information related to the HR processes and our ability to hire staff. And I know that IRMID has gathered some of that information and is prepared has provided it to the Commissioner's Court as it relates to that. Clearly, hiring somebody in the juvenile and the sheriff's office are the most complex places for us to hire because of the type of background investigations, the drug testing, the psychological, that we don't necessarily do when somebody's hired in my office.
I asked for that information going back several years, and the problem was, Mr. Graham, we weren't having this problem. We weren't having this problem 4 years ago, and the standards haven't changed. So why all of a sudden do we have the problem?
Commissioner, I can answer that. I think it's...
No, I want him to answer.
Okay. exactly why we're having actually this problem. I guess it really stems from the process that we actually have. In reference to bringing someone on board with Dallas County, especially for the sheriff and the juvenile department, it's really, really extensive. You say we didn't have it years ago. It's just some of the departments have changed the way they process their people in.
What
For
does
instance, the
that
sheriff
mean?
department, I'm giving you a prime example as far as processing with the sheriff department. The sheriff department does everything up front. The data I gave you, by the way, is only the data from the time a job offer is submitted to the time we submit the salary analysis back to the department to bring them on board. The time prior to that and the time after that is department specific. And that's the only data that I was able to provide for you all, because that's the only time we actually get indication that someone is coming on board. But for instance, the sheriff department, they do everything up front.
But what I'm saying to you, Ryan, we knew that. When we managed that in our meeting, we knew that was the problem. They had 40, 50, 60 vacancies. Did they not? Today they have how many vacancies? The sheriff's department. And none of this changed in terms of...
No, they're roughly in the 30, 40, maybe less, because we did decrease their population or their staffing as well as a result of that.
And
one of the major changes and things that caught me off guard once I started looking at the data was that historically the juvenile department would bring people on as part-timers, and they would fill them in because they do their staffing differently than the sheriff does, because they use a swing shift and they backfill with these part-timers. But that always gave them a large group of people to be able to fill full-time positions when needed. And their part-timer list is dramatically smaller than it used to be, and that really did catch me off.
But have you looked, did you get from audit the comp time?
Janet does provide that, and
No, I got it.
typically when you request it, she sends it to me as well, because I know I'm going to get some questions.
There you go. And so my point is, you can talk about that, but at the end of the day, this whole thing is about how are you managing it? How are you managing it in terms of that enterprise? Sheriff's Department saw they had some issues. They said something to us. We reloaded it. They began a different approach. They've got less vacancies. Now they got some other issues, but I'll deal with them in the future on that. But my point is, they got less vacancies. They probably got less, even with retirement, probably less than 10 vacancies.
Yes, and we've overhauled the way they do their HR twice in the last 5 years.
Right.
We've added some additional staff.
But nobody else has said that. You know, facility says something. We redid facilities.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
My point is, by department in the enterprise, by units, they need to say something. Correct? Or are they expecting us to sit up here osmotically and take it on?
Clearly, they need to say something, and obviously with the system that we have in the sheriff's office where we meet every 2 weeks on the sanitation,
But that's a
it
system.
was a very good opportunity for them to bring these types of things
But
up.
that's a system we impose.
It is.
And when you're managing it, that's what you do. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But wasn't this an item that between the budget department and the juvenile department, there was a discussion on how they were going to deal with
There
vacancies?
was clearly a very good discussion between Dr. Smith and myself as it relates
that
to
not
what
an
positions
addressing a part
weren't
of it?
needed that we could leave vacant.
But
and
my-
not
see,
fund.
my point is going-
That's different than realizing that there was a whole bunch of other positions that were vacant that were going to be needed as the population increased, and the lack of ability to hire those positions. That was not a dialogue that we had.
Exactly.
Well, and I think the whole, just to close up the conversation, is as we look at this data, we're going to have different management in different departments that hopefully, as we start this budget process, will say something, to Mr. Brown and to these members of the court in case that something is not being managed properly.
Well, my
so
point-
we will not be at this discussion.
Well, and the reason we got this discussion is because I pulled budget for the last 3 or 4 years.
And we've been seeing these numbers, Commissioner Price.
And I got it, but it happened to be on the juvenile board, okay? You know, I was outvoted last time, and I said we need a retreat. They said, we don't need a retreat. Ryan says we're going to pull these numbers out, and that's it. The problem is the reason they don't know what the hell's going on is because nobody's sitting down going through it. I've got no additional requests for staffing. And some of us been around here long enough to go back, but pre-Dr. Smith, you know, it seems like every cycle, about, 8 years, we have to go through this. We just went through this out at Medlock Youth Village. Had 2 superintendents, 2 business managers, had the same issues. Some of the same issues we have now. And here we are again. When nobody's minding the store, that's what you get. And so you can't say it's staffing problems when in fact you have not made a staffing request for over 4 years.
Population was down, so I would have been surprised had the juvenile department requested additional staffing. But I clearly believe this is a prelude to a very long Saturday that I'm going to have out at the juvenile department.
This Saturday, we won't be doing walking. We will have a retreat. That's correct.
And the moral of the story, ask if you need.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Okay.
We got
With the juvenile courts, even I broke them down even more between the 2 courts. You know, you can't get things done if you're leaving court at half day. You're running court half day. Attorneys are complaining. Investigators complaining. You can't do it with half day courts. You signed on to work all day long.
Whose courts are half days?
Judge Martin. You ask the name. All you got to do is look.
Okay.
Yeah. So whether it's 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock, it's a half day. I mean, I can say my day is half day at 12, but the hell, that's because I started 5. But my point is that the court's open, you know, and I'm still here late in the evening, even though I get emails at 7 o'clock at night. But nonetheless,
He does sleep.
Huh?
He does sleep. It's usually between 10 and 4.
That's right.
Dr.
But the probate courts are next. Probate courts are pretty much static. They seem to be doing pretty much what we kind of expect them to do. The change has been that probate courts 1 and 2 have increased, and probate 3, which is primarily our mental illness court.
The way we do that is there's one. There's some probate cases that go into the probate number 3, but most of that growth is all going to be mental.
It's mental. It's most of it's mental illness. Speaking of the DA's office, I'm still waiting on a memo with regards to. It's not you. It's Melanie. She needs to. For Judge John, waiting on that memo. Right. Commissioner Daniel and I met. My point is with regards to judicial management. The court needs to take a position with regards to these numbers as we look at the budget.
That's been the idea
It's
all
very
along.
timely.
Well, I understand.
But I get the message that, done if you do, done if you don't. If you have them open because it's going down, but then you require more, you still need to ask if you require more and fill them. So with that being said, I'm ready to move on.
Okay. Mr. Graham, before you do that, Mr. Graham, have you published for the rest of the court that information that I'd asked for? Because you really need to churn it. It needs to be churned a little bit.
Yeah, he sent us some that you requested. So.
Yeah, and I'd requested. Okay. Just want to make sure y'all have gotten that.
For the last piece of clarity on here, while we've called this judicial management, it's really just a comparison of 2008 to 2016. There is a judicial management report that the various clusters of judges have in a draft form, and I'm finalizing comments and adjustments that need to be made to that, and that will be distributed to the Commissioner's Court and published for anybody who wants.
Do you have any timeline on
that is a much more detailed in the sense it breaks it out by individual judges.
Do you have a timeline on that?
thinking I'm getting real close, so I would expect that within the next 2 weeks, I'll have all the comments back, and we'll be able to produce that, with maybe the exception of the Justice of the Peace. That one, we haven't actually done one yet and got it out for review.
Thank you.
But this is something that they've been working as a result of these numbers that we've been reviewing for quite some time. And I think that will give us a better picture, of where we can go as it comes to management and budget.
It does a good picture of individual judges year over year. It doesn't, you have to go back and dig into multiple reports.
Exactly,
to
because you got some judges who have been out there, and in fact, I find it real interesting. Somebody retires on Friday, decides that they no longer want to be on the bench. They retire on Friday, and then on Monday morning, they take the bench again as a visiting judge.
Yes.
With no responsibility, as far as I'm concerned. You have responsibility when you stand for election, and then you turn around and you retire, and then all of a sudden you come back as a visiting judge at $600 a day.
We've had some difficulty recruiting visiting judges to work due to some of the restrictions that we place on it. In addition to that, the governor's been very thoughtful, I guess, in filling the vacancies that are out there that need to be filled, and so that's putting some strain on the visiting judges. I don't know if Judge Birmingham wants to expound upon that, but that is clearly an issue.
But if the judges, based on what we just saw a few minutes ago, if they're carrying a full load, what?
But as those cases are pushed into the courts, you need to have a judge there to move the cases.
Exactly.
So if you have a vacant bench, you end up with having somebody on that bench that has to move those cases, because there's not an easy way to move them to other courts and just shut that place down.
Okay.
Because
As chair of jail population, let me just tell you some of the game that's still been playing. And we've got judges over there who say they got divert courts and treatment. What they're doing is their numbers, they always wind up at the top of the list in terms of taking care of their cases. What they're doing is, some of us has followed those cases, and I don't know if you're aware of this. They're making people serve time as a result, and it's not showing up on their jail chain. They're making them serve.
Because they're going
serving almost as a contempt of court.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're going to special court. Diversion and expedited rehabilitation and treatment court.
Okay, so they're serving as almost a probation violation, so therefore it doesn't show up in their costs.
That's right. And some of us have called that out. Now, do you know who's
Well,
calling
how are
it?
they doing that if they don't have a conviction? Because you don't have a conviction.
Well, they're letting them serve it as probation.
Well, no, wait a minute. You have to have a probation violation to be able to hold them in jail. How's the sheriff holding them?
It's going to be a probation violation is what it's being held at. I'm not exactly sure how they're getting a probation violation without a conviction, but
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
It probably falls under conditions.
I know, but that sounds like a liability on the part of Dallas County.
Yeah.
If somebody decides they want to file a lawsuit for
Yeah, you
1983.
think?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Oh, no, I know.
We need to look at that. The DA's office needs to look at that. That's ridiculous. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And it's believe me, I have the name and the court.
I know there was a meeting on Friday related to cite and release, and so I hope to get you guys an update as it relates to that. At this point in time, it doesn't look like it's going to work as smoothly as I'd liked, and they'll be issuing a citation to the individuals. They'll come to the courthouse, and that will be actually almost a magistration activity because they will not be taking care of the case at that point in time.
Why are you going to? Why?
I wasn't present at the meeting. I didn't know it occurred, and so I talked with Judge Mulder about it. I'm going to be talking additionally with Leah about it to understand why we can't figure out a process to make that a smoother process.
Well, I mean, I was under the understanding that everything was set. And that
there's a process, but it's
okay. The
there's
process
some
is set.
difficulties in getting the DA's office to change their processes for this specific type of case to be able to clear it at the first appearance. So we're still working
there's
together.
still more talking.
There's still some more talking, but now there's also starting to be requests that there may be some additional staff needed to be able to make this
Well,
work.
no,
and
I
so
mean, we need to keep it as what the purpose of the program was. Was
that's-
simple and one time. If I'm going to start asking them to come 2 or 3 times, it defeats the purpose of the management and the process.
That was my point.
Wow.
That's what I anticipated. Now I have the direction of the court, so I can bring that back to the
Fantastic,
parties
Mr. Brown.
involved. Thank you.
Put it in the big picture.
Lastly, I will be doing a budget update on the 20th, the next Tuesday we meet. And I'm sure we will have a lengthy discussion.
Yeah, we definitely will.
It's
Put
time
it
to
as
do
a
that. It's
budget
budget time,
item.
so bring it on.
Invite everybody, Mr. Brown.
My-
Let's not leave anyone out of the dance. Okay.
The next, I've kind of incorporated some of the, the whole juvenile piece in the.
Commissioner, I know we have outside people and people from out of town on
Oh,
your,
okay.
your energy
Okay,
rates,
sure,
if you wouldn't
sure.
mind.
Well,
Everybody
do
else
you
is
want to
in-house.
briefly go through the other part and?
Well, but let's just. I mean, I might be there for a second. So they got some the energy people here.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, sorry. Nobody.
I think that would.
That's right.
Let them get on back to Austin and other places.
Are they doing something in Austin?
Absolutely nothing.
Good. Well, CUC's doing something in Austin.
Okay,
I don't know
well,
about
somebody's doing
anybody else.
something.
Okay. The whole issue is that I had asked. Now, I was told this morning, and
Yeah, we can talk about it.
yeah, I was told this morning that apparently on the streets with some of this stuff. I asked because I wanted to know. I asked from Mr. Garza from purchasing. I asked for information. I asked from Mr. Wesson and Mr. Tom's office to give me information. And I've got all this information, and I had a million questions, and now they tell me that I'm told by the court administrator that we own the
RFP, we signed it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the RFP has been issued.
Yeah, it's on the
so there's limited discussion that we will be able to have our partner talk about.
I wasn't here, and I didn't see it, and that's the reason I'm asking all the
But
questions.
we did, that was an agenda item 2 weeks ago.
It
Yeah.
was information that was
It
being
was
pushed to
information.
staff to take a look at. and-
Right,
and there was-
exactly.
But we also authorized the RFP, am I correct,
We
Mr.
never, the
No.
decision
process
point,
doesn't
the
allow.
decision point
We never
was
opted
to
out.
No.
to opt out of P3 or to stay in P3.
Correct.
Right,
And we
so-
did decide
And
that.
said no action is to stay in. That was the
Okay.
action.
And
that was
again,
taken.
okay, so again, where are we with being able to discuss?
Well, so Donnelly is here, and he can kind of talk through the P3 as an entity, but he will not be able to discuss specifics to the RFP. And the county judge, as a board member, probably will want to recluse himself from any discussions as it relates to this as well.
Correct, and just for the record, these numbers were reviewed by Mr. Martin, by Mr. Heiko, by Mr. Brown. I personally met with some of the different, people interested in this, and, well, that's all I can say at this point.
Right.
The general
process
concept
was
is
there.
the more you're buying, the better the rates you're going to get. The individuals that were sending letters saying that we should opt out because we do our own RFP, we're hoping to have that occur because they are premium providers. Premium typically does not mean less expensive. And when you're buying energy, I'm not sure there's a difference between one provider versus another provider. What is are they able to deliver consistent at the rates in which you're agreed upon? And so this entity's got, Don, how many entities are in P3? 90 entities. So, across the state, and so they are.
But 90 entities represents what percentage of the utility? Don,
come on up.
More cattle than cowboys. That's what the
That's
British.
44 Texas counties, close to 1 million megawatts each year.
Okay, but
For a total annual expenditure of over $77 million.
well, but what does again? Hell, Dallas and Harris County probably account for what percentage of that?
For the record, my name is Donald Lee. I'm your executive director at Texas Conference Urban Counties and Public Power Pool. your competitive part of your bill, your spend is $3.6 million a year.
I got
Harris
this
County
amount.
is north of $10 million a
But
year.
Harris and Dallas County are what percentage of the total?
So the total is 77 million, and Harris is north of 10 million.
13
So
out of 77.
that includes the NRG Stadium complex.
Okay. You know, I guess at the end of the day, Don, and I don't know what else is, you know, supposedly on the streets with all of that. I don't know how we get to, where, has somebody seen the RFP that, I mean?
No, no, it wasn't, the RFP wasn't provided to us because the question.
Wait. Pat, if it wasn't provided, how do we know what's out there?
Where that was a decision point of, does Dallas County want to pull out of P3 and do something themselves?
I got it.
Or do they want to stay in? And that decision point is necessary for them to be able to do an RFP because they need to know how many kilowatts that aggregated group is going to purchase and where in the state they were going to be located, because that will change any bids that come in on that RFP.
But again, okay, that's.
Now that the RFP is on the street is public information, anybody can go pull that down and look at it.
And the RFP is reviewed by our technical committee, which you have representation on, and by our board. And so it's vetted, and it's vetted over a several-month process, which took place earlier in this year. So the RFP is vetted, and it's basically the same instrument we've used now for a number of cycles, though it gets refined every time through based upon feedback from providers and from members.
But we haven't been on the street with this, just P3, you know, I guess Commissioner Cantrell and I don't, people been around for 15 years. For 15 years, we have not tested.
Yeah. Yeah, we have.
Well, my perspective, if I may, Commissioner, my perspective is that I know that you've had 3 representatives from Dallas County on our board, and I can remember all 3 of them when they have been there have asked sharp questions of our consultants and asked them to prove up and analyze, and even brought in, Judge Jenkins even brought in some outside expertise to look at what we were doing and how we were approaching it. Well, we get reviewed and examined, and our results get examined on a regular basis. We do it internally, and I think our diligent board members do it externally, and that goes on a regular basis. When Commissioner Cantrell was there and when Judge Jackson was there, and the other county commissioners and judges who are on our board do that, because they all, like you, want the best deal possible. And so we feel we have, you know, eyes from 90 different entities examining what we're doing. We organize that conference call with them so they have a chance to talk and say, hey guys, look at this. Is this the way it needs to be? So there's a really good exchange of information and experiences that keeps this group on the forward cutting edge of doing it right.
How many times have we gone out in the last 15 years? We went out 3 years ago.
It's over a half dozen times now.
Yeah, over a half dozen times.
Well, yeah, no, but we've gone out as the P3 group and not into what I call the market.
Yeah.
Well,
so if I may,
do so though would be very expensive, because you would have to hire a consultant to come in and develop that RFP, because it's not just as simple as saying, here's how much power we want to use, give us a price. This is built with caps and floors and collars, and it is not it's certainly nothing that I believe any of your staff has expertise enough to be able to develop.
Okay.
And the only example in a local market where I can use is the city of Dallas was in P3.
Right.
They chose to go out, and they ended up with a rate that was significantly higher than the rate we were paying.
And
so
they DISD also.
Huh?
Don, I've got some questions.
DISD?
Yeah, I think so.
What, DISD in the pool?
I believe DISD and the city talked about being together, but then broke it apart.
DISD had the same experience. They were
They
with
had
us.
the same experience. I want Commissioner Price to hear this. DISD had the same exact experience.
Paid over
Straight up.
$1 million more going and purchasing on their own.
Yeah.
We look at this because We look at this on a constant basis with our consultants of analyzing and proving up. Is the collective purchasing have value for you? And intuitively, we all think it does. Buying $77 million of electricity is going to get you a more competitive situation than buying $3.6 million. But we look at it and we can back test it because we have new counties come to us in the middle of a cycle, so we buy for them individually. And we can compare what an individual county can get on their rates compared to what they can get collectively. And we can see the difference. And for you, it's at least, after expenses of our corporation, 3%. It's at least 3% per year. That's not a small amount of money when you look at the overall $3.6 million spend. So you're saving money by purchasing collectively. We are very convinced of this, and we welcome examination of that. And my experience is that your colleagues have on the board, they want that proven up on a consistent basis.
And Don, I've got some questions, and you let me know if I get close to running afoul of our bylaws. But every electricity provider in Texas, including the one who is complaining now and is the cause of this section of the meeting, they're notified both orally and in writing of the bid process and have an opportunity to bid, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I know that the company, the local company that's upset now, came to me and Dan Garza, and the pitch to us with their representative that day is, you will save money somehow if you change your process. You can do better not being an aggregated buyer, but being a single source buyer. And I believe they made that same pitch to Commissioner Garcia, and I know when in the meeting with Dan, we explained to them we would like for them to bid. So what I'm not understanding from this is, even if it's true that we somehow could do better with a different process, doing it alone, hiring our own consultant, finding a consultant, I think currently our portion of all the consulting services that Dallas County gets is $57,000 a year. So I'm not sure how good of a consultant we're going to get for $57,000. But even if we could get that, what was the impediment for this local company bidding on our RFP as it currently exists?
So that is a good question. I can only give you the actual facts and history as we know it. That company was successful in bidding with in our process historically.
Advise that we don't get into any details of the RFP.
He's talking about
historical. I'm talking about historic.
Not this one, but early on.
About historic experiences only. It was successful. Other competitors, they came to us and said, we do a debriefing with all the competitors after every procurement. We say, we ask you, do you think it was fair? Do you think it was a good competitive procurement? Was it open? Was it decided by your pricing decisions, or do you think somehow we influenced it unfairly? We ask those questions of our suppliers after every procurement, and we have historically gotten very good marks, unblemished marks, including from all the suppliers, all the major suppliers in the state. The other suppliers said, there was another supplier who said, you know what, we're going to compete even harder and we're going to win that, and they did. And the supplier that now is recommending pulling out was unsuccessful for a couple cycles. And we had to sit down with them, and they said, you know, we believe we are a premium service provider. We don't like and we don't want. We've had a corporate decision and philosophy not to compete on price. And they stopped competing with us. In a previous procurement finished in 2015, they came back to us because we always reached out to them and said, we want you back in. We want you competing. They came to us. We have a standard set of contracts now that all the competitors agree to compete on. Standard set of contracts and terms. And they worked with us on that, came to agreement on that, and on the final bidding day, they came to us and said, we cannot bid. We cannot get approval from our higher-ups in management to use that contract. So the other competitors are able to use a contract that secures us the deal for you, that has provisions in it that are unique to energy procurements that secure the deal for you. The other competitors are able to provide you the value in that contract, and they were unable to secure approval to do that. And since then their recommendation to our members has been pull out, do it alone. So that's the history.
The impediment is what?
Impediment to them bidding?
Yeah, he just.
So as it was communicated in 2015, the impediment was the standard contract that all of our other competitors agree to.
No, I got that, but you said they.
Yeah. What he's asking is what specifically in the standard contract, if they told you, is so odious to them that they can't compete with all their competitors?
I'd be speculating. They did not single that out to us.
Someone agreed up until the last day, and then they tell you that they couldn't do it because there's something in the contract, and they didn't reveal?
That is exactly what happened. I should say this. They told us that they could not obtain approval from upper management to supply power under that agreement.
That's what they need.
So
this go round, we still encourage that company to compete and to bid, and we reached out. And in fact, this conversation, in fact, over the last 5 months has taken place across the state with all of our members. They have reached out across the state and have made a lot of complaints and strong recommendations along with allegations about us that the members would do better on their own. 96% of our members stayed with you and stayed in the group, and our group stays together. In those discussions, they expressed, well, we could give you a better deal on your own. They said this to Harris County. Harris County said, well, then what contract terms are a problem? None. We can give you a better deal under the terms, those good terms that P3 asked for. Then go bid for it. And Harris County looked over our shoulder to say, now be fair. And we do. We have a policy, Commissioner, that if you're a supplier out there and you have a better way than we're asking in our bid specs, bring that alternative. And if they bring it and say, look, for Dallas County, we can provide a better rate, we have a duty to you to bring that to your board member and to your technical representative. And we encourage, and we told that company that. We told them, if you have a better way, bring it to us. We have a duty to make sure that the county that would benefit from that knows about it, and we have a duty to analyze it in a fair and objective way. And that was not forthcoming. We still encourage it.
In the last, and I'm sure you don't mind sending me this, what does that profile look like in the P3 in the last engagement? I want to know companies are involved, because I couldn't find it. Y'all keep saying it's out there.
Profile, what do you mean?
I don't know companies. Yeah. No. I want to know who utilization.
Got the bids in those last so many years?
Yeah.
That should
We
be
can do
public
that.
information.
We can do that.
No?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
In past years.
And do you have a SBE, WMBE component?
We do not.
Why?
It has not been a provision in the bid specifications that our group has settled on.
Are there? Let me ask you this: in the marketplace, are there any suppliers out there?
The suppliers that compete for us are big national suppliers like. I'm told, I know your counsel over here wants to make sure we don't get into certain business. Our general counsel tells us.
I don't need to know the name. I asked a very 50,000-foot question, and you answered it. You said no, and you said because they're big guys, that means that they don't include nobody else.
I think, let me stop me if I can't, if I get run afoul of this. But based on the information that we have, I feel good that at least the current person at the top of the list has strong MWB credentials.
Excuse me? What did you just say?
I don't know if he's not getting into that, Judge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to. He answered the question. They historically have not had anybody.
Well, we'll get you the historic information. I know what you're asking for, and you want to
Right,
see that for the historic
exactly.
information. I'll work with Donnelly to get that information to you.
I can also say, too, as a member, a commissioner who regularly attends the CUC meetings, that we get a monthly report on what's going on with PPP. We get a monthly report on the status of any activity, where they stand on amount of power provided, at what cost, where there are issues. And that's just a standard procedure of us being aware of what's going on.
But based on this, my first interlock with Don, I asked one question, and he just said, it's big boys and they don't.
Well,
They can provide historical information on that, which they will.
Well, guys.
The RFP does not speak to it.
Let me.
In regard, since the RFP is a public document, if you want to know something that's in the public about the RFP, you can answer that. But discussing the ranking, the current ranking,
Yeah.
things of that nature.
He's looking historically for that information.
Discussing ranking.
I think we hear what we wanted to hear.
Yeah,
And
we
thank
did.
you so much.
Let me give a little bit of, this is not about this RFP, but background on this. So power is a commodity, and you buy it from large companies that generate it. And I think the question that Commissioner Price has is there an MWBE component within our RFP? And there is not.
That's right.
The answer, a question that I have when I look at these things is there participation from the community in these companies? And there is. But I want to make something clear.
What does that mean?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think I can go any further than that, but maybe in a couple of weeks when this is over. I can say that, can I talk about a past RFP? I can talk about a past RFP. So our current provider under this contract that we're under now is Cavallo GLO. GLO stands for the General Land Office. So you're currently, as of today, the lights being on in this building are being powered by the state of Texas, the employees of the state of Texas, the programs of the state of Texas. The General Land Office sells that electricity. They do have MWBE programs in place at the state of Texas, and they're robust programs, better than ours, the kind that we are hoping to get. Other companies who've had our power supply in the past have had within themselves robust MWB programs. One of the trade-offs that we have in being an aggregator, and I think I can do this without getting into this one, is the values that you and I share, Commissioner, and other members of this court share regarding MWBE are not necessarily things that we, because we're outvoted on that, can put into the contract. There are discussions about all sorts of things like going 100% green, this and that. And those are, because it's an aggregation of 93 counties, not everything everybody wants can go in there. But there are ways to get there, and I think our values are seen, for instance, today in the way the lights are on with the state of Texas. Let me say this about our background, too. He talked about some of the outside expertise that we bring to this. The company that is causing the concerns today did a contract with a city here in the county. That contract was so upsetting to members of the business community that they came to me and I believe the elected leader of that city and said they would like to look at our energy contracts in the future and advise on those. A large Fortune, I believe 100 companies power buyer worked free of charge for us at P3. This is not a competitor. This is a large petrochemical company that buys power for their refineries. They looked at the contract, made recommendations and improvement to P3, but did not recommend, to my knowledge and recollection, that we leave P3. They recommended some modifications and changes that saved us money. So, we're constantly looking at that, and I'm not here as as an absolute cheerleader for P3 or anyone else, but that's the procurement process we're in now. If the court is of a mind to look at that with an outside consultant, there was some discussion with Harris County in the next procurement, whatever that would be, when 2020, when we're procuring for 2024 or something, to have a consultant look at that. But that's what this city did, this city that got the bad editorials and the bad stories in the paper. They hired a consultant that used to work for the company that is complaining today, and that company recommended a deal that got the bad editorials in the paper. So there's no perfect way to do this, but it looks like the way that large counties and entities like us are doing it is either through an aggregator or through hiring a subject matter expert either in-house, which is very expensive, or as a consultant. And P3 hires the only difference in us doing this alone and us doing this with P3 is the aggregation. It's just like using the PEBC for our health benefits. We could hire our own Diana Konjovic and go out for bid on things, and we've talked about doing that in the past. And, that's the difference. But I'm satisfied that every person in Texas that sells power had a chance to bid on this.
Absolutely. And if I may, I'll just say this. If I implied that there was a discussion about MWEB requirements and it was said, oh no, because the big guys are the one. No, there was not that discussion. There was not a reason there on that. It has not been a priority brought to us by our members. And so...
You're making my point. You're making my point.
Well,
yeah,
I'm just trying to... It's not a big dog. It's not a big dog thing because we actually have some smaller competitors who compete in our process and have won load. We have some smaller entities that have done that. So it's a fair and open and competitive process that meets the needs of our members as brought to us, and we're happy to work to meet whatever those needs are that are brought to us.
Let me just ask this last question. How many of your members look like me?
I think it's the distribution of elected officials and county commissioners.
That wasn't the question, Dan. How many of your members look like me? Who bought?
You mean the counties, Commissioner? What do you mean exactly?
Huh?
The counties that they represent?
93 members, and
I don't understand.
Yeah, okay, 93 members. How many of them?
El Franco Lee served on the P3.
You're talking about the board?
For
years. I see, okay.
Yeah, for years. El Franco Lee served on that P3 board for years.
Just reading God, take him home. My point is how many are there now?
I do not know the number of African American county commissioners on our member counties. I don't have those numbers. Is that what you? Is that? I'm sorry. I thought that's what you're asking for. On the P3 board,
Yeah.
there are no African American members on our P3 board right now.
Any Hispanic?
I do not believe so.
So you're in a state where a large population is Hispanic, African, no representation, and you say nobody brought up Wimby or SPE.
Talk to the voters.
Do what? I got you.
Our board is
Yeah, I
elected
know.
by our members and provided to us.
I got you. You're just the messenger. I got you. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just a messenger. Got you. Okay.
Thank you.
Judge and Commissioners, I'm sorry, I'd like to ask for one quick indulgence. We just came through a very long and arduous legislative session. It looks like we're going to have to go back into overtime. I want to thank Commissioner Daniel for the trips to Austin month after month as a member of our policy committee and the work that you put in. The work that you put in on our P3 board as our former chairman of our association, and all of y'all for the support of the association, and especially thank you for the ongoing engagement of Craig Pardue in sending Charles Reed to us down in Austin to work on our team that puts in so many long hours trying to tell the story of urban counties to your delegations and to the legislature. Charles does a tremendous amount of work for us, and we appreciate it very much. And we appreciate your commitment and leadership to the collaborative efforts of the association.
I want to borrow from former Commissioner Dickey. Charles who?
Charles Reed.
Well, Don, we appreciate what you do down there too, because we know it's a grind, and we appreciate all that you do.
Read 302.
Your goal to protect counties and do the right thing. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I ain't buying it, Don, but okay. Good to see you, Don.
Don doesn't try to sell anything.
Okay.
So that's all the presentations?
No, we still got unincorporated areas.
Oh, unincorporated areas, that's right.
It's my unincorporated areas.
I'm just giddy.
Yeah.
Unincorporated areas.
On the juvenile deal, I still say, you know, we got issues. I guess we're going to try to deal with them this coming Tuesday. I still say what brought this to deal is the whole certification piece in regards to Medlock, and that's the reason that I've put it on here for the court, because at the end of the day, it's not the juvenile department that has the liability. It's this county. It's this commissioner's court. And whether it's about staffing, whether it's about other issues, you know, when we certify, I know it's all basically LAJ judges that are on that board, but at the end of the day, this is about Dallas County, and any liability rests with Dallas County.
And Commissioner, I agree with that, and it's hard for us to sit up here and not to be complicit in that. When the last 3 years of budget, Mr. Ryan Brown, in the last 3 years when we've been through the budget process, we've told basically departments, don't be asking for staff. We've got in our mind what we're going to do with workforce investment.
But wait a
So
minute.
we can't say we're not complicit.
No.
When we're out here telling departments, don't be asking for staff.
No. Well, yeah, you say that. But when you are under a regulatory agency that says that there's a staffing ratio, and you're putting kids in danger and others.
I understand that.
And it wasn't just this Medlock. I said something, I pulled my records 3 months ago about another department, in the juvenile department, where they stood up and said, yes, we need staffing. You know, all I'm saying to you, and that's the reason we have a juvenile retreat, we say, you know, we need staffing. We have a liability. It's different when we got a regulatory agency that says you don't get a chance to say, you know, well, 1 to 8, 1 to 24, you know, are you in compliance? You know, you don't get a chance to move the kids around. You don't get a chance to sleep them on the floor. You got to be on 6. We got regular. That's what we did with the jail. That's what we.
I understand that.
Okay.
Is this the time to review that during the budget time, to take
Yes.
a look at compliance?
Yeah, and that's but the reason I'm bringing
It sounds very timely to be having this
exactly.
discussion.
But when I see Commissioner Cantrell just used the word complicit, when I see and say something to a board that I probably have missed less meetings as a ranking member than anybody. When I say something to them, say we're out of compliance, and they go up and we just go out on a certify.
Let me back up, because I was there for that, and I just want to make sure. You gave us information that day that I understand later, I found out later from the paper, even our juvenile director was unaware of.
That's not true. That's not true, because it had been filed. It's not true, Judge. Stop it.
Well,
it's not
I'm just
true.
telling you what it says in the newspaper, so if the newspaper got it wrong. But I've got a question for you, Commissioner. The information that you got from whatever source, the family? The parent, okay.
Right.
Is that information that the juvenile department already had?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the reason they polygraphed them.
Okay.
Sure they did.
So the information that you got, they already had?
Sure they did.
Okay.
Sure they did. That's the reason they polygraphed them. That's the reason they polygraphed those kids. And the thing is,
I'm not arguing with you, I'm asking you a question.
You were sitting there when I was asking staff, you know, is this the case?
Excuse me, Commissioners, is this under the
It is. It's juvenile facilities, it's certification, it's staffing, and it's other issues.
Okay, because while we don't have to state all of the consequences that may arise from discussion to the extent we kind of going far afield of that. I would just, remind you guys of that. We need to stick to the post.
Come again?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand
she
that,
just-
the direction.
While we do not have to state all the consequences that may arise from our posting, I would just advise that we kind of more stick to
I wasn't calling parents' names. I wasn't calling kids' names. I was just, I was reciting.
Hang on, let me get, are you giving us direction on something? I'm not following you. What's the direction?
Did this discussion fall under the judicial mandate?
No,
It's under juvenile facility. It's juvenile facility.
Do you have a concern with what we're talking about?
That's fine. I thought we might have been going afield, but we're okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. No.
Well,
That's just what we're going to do. That just, my position is we're, at the end of the day, we're live.
yeah. And, one thing that came out clearly is that when something happens, Commissioner Price, and I know that you are a member of that committee, it needs to come out to the attention of everyone.
But, and I asked Judge Roden, without getting into a floating quorum, I conversed with the chair, back and forth. I understand now, I was told this morning, my emails have been requested. But I conversed with the chair.
The chair of juvenile.
The chair of juvenile, which I'm the vice chair.
Right.
And see, again, it'd be different if this was new. It was just in another facility, same kind of issue. At that time, it was the whole mental health and whether or not a child may or
So
may
it
not.
was tagged to something else. We were not aware. I mean,
That's exactly right. And so I was going back and forth with the chair, but I didn't get into the real detail. But again, the staffing issue rose. And all I'm saying to you is that when it came up, I was trying to alert my members with regards to what was going on, asking in front of everyone, and of course, I was told one thing, and I had information to the other. And then I asked for the incident reports, but based on what the parents said. The parents are always concerned about their kids who are still in custody and retaliation. And I know staff's going to tell you, oh, no, we wouldn't retaliate. Well, the parent doesn't know that. The parent doesn't have that comfort level. So they reach out. And so then I ask at the 50,000-foot level. And then I'm told, nah, that didn't really happen.
So let me ask you a question, because one of the things that was of a concern to me is that we were getting information from the parents, or Commissioner Price was getting information from the parents, and that's good that we get information from anywhere. But in the article, I thought I saw in the article that you were saying the first time you knew of the kids sleeping on the floor was that day.
Correct.
Okay.
And Commissioner Price's intel is wonderful. I just didn't have that same information. I was not aware of that. And since that meeting, I put changes into place to make sure that I get accurate information from my members, from my team. And even back to Commissioner, when the person said we were understaffed, part of what I changed is, tell me what you've done. How many people have you submitted? So looking at the whole process that includes HR, that includes everybody in the department. So, when I knew, I made changes.
Okay.
And that's what we're addressing now.
And Commissioner Price, how long before the meeting did you find out about the kids sleeping on the floor?
Oh, I had known weeks since I'd returned. But I knew about all the incidents.
Well, and you knew more than I did, Commissioner. I remember saying to you one time specifically, and I'm not going to go into the minutiae of the detail because I don't think our kids are media props. So I really don't want to do that, and I'm glad we'll have an opportunity to discuss it in detail. But I didn't know. And I did not know the kids were sleeping on the floor, and I was just reading an email. Well, I won't discuss that, but I just got some more information surrounding that I didn't have.
And I got that information too, and I'm not bringing it up. My point is, Doctor, you can't have the kind of administration that you have people around you and not know what the heck's going on.
I agree, Commissioner.
Okay, and we've gone through this before, juvenile.
I don't think we've ever gone through. Okay.
Pre-you. See, so we've seen this movie before, and so it's just amazing to me. You put people in place, and they don't know what's going on, and your administration doesn't know what's going on.
And I'm taking the steps to rectify that, Commissioner. Once I knew what I didn't know, I've corrected it. And that's all I can do going forward. So the first time that people don't tell me, then shame on them. If it happens again, shame on me. But I have put steps in place to rectify that, to make sure I get at least, and I've told my team, I don't care who you tell second, but the first person you should tell is going to be me.
But each time I've dealt with it, I've had to deal with a parent who's got an outcry.
And I appreciate that.
You guys, the information, somebody had it because they polygraphed the kids.
That's true, and you're right.
How long after you got to meet did you polygraph the kids?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, how long after it came to some awareness did you polygraph the kids?
The next day. Because they were scheduled to come anyway. Those kids get polygraphed at least once a week. So when that came out in group, I was told they were polygraphed the next day because they were already scheduled to come out. So I'm telling you what I got, Commissioner. Okay. So that's the information I got because that is a question I asked.
So, Commissioner, when you got the information, you related to Judge Shannon, and both of you knew about the kids sleeping on the floor.
In fact, I kept it at the 50,000 sexual shenanigans. That's my deal. I did not. And then when we began to talk about it, you heard the discussion. Well, maybe they were standing in line. Maybe there was some touching. And then I get the dadgum incident report because I said something to the parent about, well, it's just touching. She said, tell what she said, but she said, and so I said, I want the incident report. I asked, and it was just as the parent had said.
And I sent them to you because I hadn't seen them, and once I saw them.
But I know, but the only reason you sent them to me is because after the parent said something, and then I asked for them. See, somebody should have read them between the time that I brought it up and I got the report.
Commissioner, and like I said, I don't want our kids to be a media prop because, granted, there were some things that went on that shouldn't have happened. I get all that, and I do. But at the same time, once I got the information, I shared the information. I did not have any information or see any report before that day that you brought it up on May 22nd. Now, why that is, I don't know how you got that, but what I hope is going forward, it's just like Commissioner Garcia, when she got a complaint from a constituent, they came and asked me, said they're working over in detention, they're all of that. And we addressed that and I answered those questions. I want to know what's going on. I want to know if you know ahead of time and something where it's jeopardizing kids' safety, I want to know that.
Yeah, and Commissioner.
I hear that.
In regard to this posting, it's certification, staffing, and other issues. Other issues is not a proper posting, it's very vague. To the extent we're talking about this under, staffing issues, et cetera, we probably don't want to go far afield and, of those issues and apparently discuss too much of this specific case because the other issues posting is not going to cover that.
Staffing. I've talked to you about staffing, and I brought it up at least 3 months ago with regards to Jerome McNeil.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
It came up.
Yes.
Same scenario.
And Commissioner, when that was brought up, they never told me that. But what I did, regardless of that, I turned around and had a job fair because I told them, you can't say you need people and you're not doing anything to rectify it. And I'm going to stick with staffing because Ms. Carruthers just advised that incident reports are not public, so she doesn't want people requesting incident reports. But at the same time, when we sat down, because I was tired of this, saying it's HR saying it's here, we're saying it's the employees, so I put everybody in the same room, and there's work we have to do. There is work we have to do. You can't tell me you have 22 positions and you're only submitting 9 names. And that's what came out from this meeting. So we're able to at least look where the breakdown is, see how we can rectify it, and see how we can fix it. And that's what we're doing going forward. I don't know how staff are staying over, they're working doubles, they're doing all of that. And
I got all the compensatory time, but it's about management.
Yeah, it is.
It's about management because you got less kids. You got less.
No, we've gone up 14%,
Well,
and that's what is part of all of this.
Yeah, not at Medlock. You only authorized 98 kids.
Commissioner, the kids flow out.
I got it.
So if you've got 14%, they're going somewhere in the system, whether it's another facility,
I got it, but
detention.
I was talking primarily about Medlock, and then 3 months ago I was talking about Jerome McNeil.
And they're in worse shape. We haven't corrected that. So there's some challenges we have. There's no doubt about it. People are calling in worse shape and for our staffing. But what we have to do is make sure that we're putting things in place that doesn't create ourselves being short. So we got to make sure we're not the problem and be part of the solution. And so once it was brought to my attention and we put everybody in the room, we have to make some changes. There's just no ifs, ands,
But
or buts about
shifting
it.
people around.
That's not the changes I'm talking about in terms of staffing, Commissioner.
I am fine with having these public discussions. I think it's good. I think it's obviously it's very important we don't disclose names of kids.
Nobody's done it.
We're not doing that. But a concern that I had, and maybe you can explain it to me, but if you knew weeks before and before the board meeting, when we had the public discussion, why not tell the juvenile director about these problems?
She was on the email when I said sexual shenanigans.
No,
She was. Excuse me.
The kids sleeping on the floor.
Well, you know that was the issue. That's what grew out of it because I wanted to find out how this stuff happened. Okay.
Right.
So again, I sent an email. Yeah, you know they keep you up. Okay, I got you.
Well,
I can't talk about it. But my point is that I advised somebody, and she was on the email chain.
I think it's critical when we get that information, unless it's something that we need to go to a different agency on, that we go to the department head or the agency.
I just told you. I
Well,
did.
You know, the sad thing, I think, on this case, and it's unacceptable, is that it took so long for this to come up. And that's unacceptable.
What is the usual procedure when you become aware of a situation, whether it's compliance of beds on the floor, et cetera, et cetera? What is your usual procedure in addressing that?
Shouldn't be no procedure. The procedure is the standards say you can't sleep a kid on the
Okay,
floor.
so what's the reaction? What happens?
Well, the standard says if we have to, the rationale, and this will stay under the staffing criteria, the rationale for the sleeping on the floor was to maintain compliance with the staff-to-child ratio.
There is no standard.
Hold on, Commissioner, I'm getting ready to go.
Okay.
They were sleeping on the mattresses, although the standard says you have to be 6 inches off the ground. We did not have, in the juvenile vernacular, they're called boats. So we did not have the boats for the kids to put their mattresses on top of. So the decision-making after asking questions after the fact is, do you maintain compliance with ratios, or do you take the citation for 6 inches off the ground? So that's it. Should it have risen to my level? Absolutely, I should have known about kids being on the floor. And I don't want to keep repeating it because I just didn't know about the kids being on the floor. So I've changed all that. We have to meet every single week, and I have to know about everything, including exigent circumstances. That's an exigent circumstance that we need to know. Anything that has to do with reporting to the state, I need to be aware of it. So if it takes having those meetings every single week to make sure I get at least the same amount of information that is disseminated to other people, that's what I'm going to need to do, and that's exactly what I've done and started to do.
Thank you, Dr. Smith.
Okay. And since we're still talking about juvenile and staffing, you're $250,000 over JJAEP.
We are, Commissioner. And
Yeah,
it's-
but the board, I'll guarantee you, the rest of the board has heard nothing about that. It's only through my digging through the rest of the stuff. It's been in none of their amendments.
Commissioner, it's going to be in the budget retreat because there's Ryan Brown and I, we've already been discussing this. Because part of the problem is JJ is the only facility in the county that has to pay their own rent. And so the rent is not based on the revenue. We get JJ funding based on the number of kids. So when we have to pay rent and the revenue hasn't gone up and the population's gone down, Mr. Brown is aware of that. And so we've got some proposals with buses. It's all of that we're going to...
I got all of that. But my point is when I started digging into looking at the 3 year in terms of staffing, I got into it's staffing, JJ.
That's not a staffing issue, Commissioner.
Okay, then that means you can't talk about it. Hell, I was trying to give you a couple, but anyway. Okay.
It's not a staffing issue, though.
But it's $250,000. Commissioner Cantrell earlier was talking about that's $250,000 out of our pocket.
It is, and if we can talk about, I'm trying to get it under the certification piece.
I don't think you can talk about that.
Got it.
That's
Okay.
fine. But it's not related to staffing.
Got it. Okay, I'm finished. Unincorporated, let's go.
Yes, Fire Marshal and Mr. Grace are here to talk, give you an update on the unincorporated services. I know Dr. Garcia had some interest in an update, and Commissioner Price also met with Mr. Fire Marshal, Mr. Grace. So we'd like to give you just a brief overview of the activities in the unincorporated at this point and some of the issues we have moving forward over the next few months. Marshal?
Commissioners,
Marshall.
thank you for letting us go over the Robert
Is that
Del Santos.
staffing? Never mind. Shut up. I just got my
Robert Del Santos, Dallas County Fire Marshal Office.
Wait, go back.
Again, yeah, we are talking about staffing because if you can see what we have out there, basically the unincorporated areas of the county is about the size of a little bit smaller than the city of Garland. And there's a lot of area out there that we have to cover out there. So that's what we're looking at. Again, our office, the Fire Marshal's office, is myself, Doug Engel, my assistant fire marshal, and Mike Barber, deputy, and Justin Porter, another deputy, and my office admin is Stacy Whiteside, along with Mike. You can present your people.
Mike Grace, Director of Unincorporated Area Services. Norfolk area. This is our new nuisance abatement officer started May 15th. John Spencer. We have a vacant position for development coordinator, and Friesen Nichols will be serving our engineering services.
As you can see in the compliance areas, the things that we're dealing with out there, again, animal dumping, a bunch of salvage yards, batch plants, construction, remodeling businesses out there.
I want to question your numbers because in talking to the sheriff's department, I thought we only had 8 salvage yards out there.
No, sir.
How many salvage yards?
You're looking at about 28.
About 28.
Yes.
Okay. Somebody can't count.
That we know of. And
that we know
of. And the reason I say that is really 29 because we went on a fire last week and we found another salvage yard that popped up out there. That's what happens out there.
Chief Brown, somebody over there can't count. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
Well, and we're working with Auto
okay.
Task Force on that as well.
Well, what task force?
Auto Task Force.
Auto, okay.
Again, some of the things out there, we have gravel, sand pits out there. We have hog farms. There's a lot of, vehicle storage out there, mechanic shops. And then we have the ranches, rodeos, and schools out there as well, and slaughterhouses and tire recycling centers as well out there in the unincorporated areas of the county. And those are some of the pictures that we have out there of the illegal dumping and some of the salvage yards out there and some of the unstructural businesses out there or structures. Again, the inspection, investigation part of the Fire Marshal's office, we still have to do our inspections out here in the county buildings, which we also do annually, and then we're also in the jails. That's our core. we got to make sure that's happening in the detention center. Again, we have commercial and residential inspections out there in development. And the investigation part.
And expound, since I did a little bit about it, but expound for the court what's going on with regards to residential and development, because my constituents, other than Commissioner Cantrell, who has a small little piece up there, they don't have that problem. But what's going on, they're doing a lot of building in the unincorporated area. And we got nobody to go in there and do them inspections.
And that's what we're doing. Right now, what we've done,
And they can't get
especially in the
homeowners.
south towards Lancaster, that's our biggest residential area. And what we're doing is doing a voluntary status with the development, like some of the home developments out there. They're wanting us to come out there and do inspections.
Well,
So
that's because
they want a CO out there.
That's right. They can't get a CO.
And if you can't get a CO, you can't sell a house here in Texas.
But see, he doesn't get into that detail. I want him to understand why we're in the residential development business.
Well,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I mean, first of all, I'm very pleased to see this. Thank you, Mr. Martin, Fire Marshal, and of course, Mr. Grace. Because I know firsthand, and I know, Commissioner, that all of us have toured these areas, and it's really sad what we're seeing. Now, with that being said, one of the things is we don't have the power of ordinance. We don't have the power of zoning. And that's why for me it was so important that someone like Mr. Grace will come out to do those agreements. I find amazing that one of the items that we have today is no parking zones because the street was designed in a very narrow way. So emergency personnel cannot go through. For me, that is just unbelievable that we will get a development that lacks of the basic infrastructure for emergency personnel and safety be developed. But with that being said, Fire Marshal, I understand that for the last 5 years you have pretty much no staff. And now, while we have 5, currently we still don't have
This
enough.
isn't based on no staff.
Well,
No,
you know,
this is agreement. No, you're right. I'm getting ready to get into
well,
it.
but again, you know, our problem is we need to do something. And that's what we're trying to do now.
But the streets, I want to make sure that people understand on the parking deal. That was an agreement that, first of all, was set forth by Lancaster and their ETJ.
That's right. It's
Okay?
ETJ.
Yes.
That's right. So I don't want to put back an account. The only reason is that we're out there now having to patrol that area,
Correct.
and we have now seen it. So, like you said, a lot of people are patrolling. We've had meetings on top of meetings on top of meetings. High school, in the community, everywhere. Community has been there. We've sent out, leafed every house in the community. And what we've basically said to them, we've got issues. Now, if you park in your garage and park off the street, we don't have this problem. That's not the case. And so as a result, when I can't get just basic cars down through there, we told them. I mean, it's just no surprise. We told them we've got to do something different for public safety reasons.
That's correct.
And so, no, but what I don't want to make it sound like, we put in them narrow streets, that was an agreement, that's a mud.
And it was an agreement that shouldn't have.
Well, but the problem is the ETJ, you just got through saying, we don't have zoning. They had to approve, they had the
Commissioner, you saying we have authority over that?
No.
We can stop them from doing that?
No, we can't.
Well, I mean, we should be able
And we-
to.
No.
Well,
No, I know.
There's some
But I mean-
some agreed upon language we need to put in the next ETJ.
That's right.
Exactly.
Not in the current ETJ, and we're going through all of our ETJ regulations based on direction from Commissioner Price, because this development is looking to do another development.
Exactly.
So we want to make sure that does not happen going in the future. But, I mean, there's some language we could have worked out in the ETJ, which we did not do.
Only if the city wants to agree to it, because they don't have to agree to it.
Well,
Their ETJ.
Well,
It's their ETJ.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
There are 3 reasons, there are 3 opportunities in the ETJ, and it's either we give them the authority to do all the zoning, or we have some sort of agreed upon agreement with them, or they give it to us.
Correct.
So there are 3 areas that we can.
We don't want it.
But those are our options. Those are our
We
options.
can negotiate.
What
that.
happened is we have sort of let them do it on
Right.
their own last
They
time,
take
and
it.
so that the streets were developed the way the streets were developed. Now, because we have to come back and do the patrol and do the other kind of things we're doing now, I'm suggesting that we be involved in the ETJ development, so it'll be a joint agreement, so that the streets aren't 26 feet like they currently are, so fire trucks can get down there. I had to do a demonstration of the fire truck because we have to respond.
In the
and
past-
the fire truck, they had to pull the mirrors in on cars on the side of the street so that his fire truck can get down.
Good, and we had a lot of, did we film that and show it?
Well, I had him take
Yeah, we have
of it
pictures.
and,
Basically,
Let me just clarify, Commissioner Control, because I know where you're coming from, and you are right. You know, in the past, we didn't have the staff, we didn't have the resources, we didn't have, you know, not even the codes to go ahead and do it. Now we are in a position with Mr. Gray's position to negotiate, like Mr. Martin said, you know, expand our options. You know, so we don't finish with what we're seeing right now. I mean, developments that have absolutely very little sustainability, for saying it in a no-binding way, that we cannot provide the basics, you know, security that we need
And I
to
think it's
provide.
important to get in from the beginning because the hope is that we get into these agreements so that these areas can be annexed. The problem
Well,
what
that-
happens with this was this got a mud attached to it that's 30 years. We're never going to be able to annex that. So
And wait, and state law is such that these cities don't want to annex. That brings no real value. The biggest problem we had with regards to this is that this same developer bought the project out of bankruptcy. Number one. Number two, he wants to put in about 500 more houses. Well, no, not only that. No, roof to roof. That's another problem. Number three, it's in the alignment of Loop 9.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, that's what we told him. In fact, he brought that up at one of our meetings. He said, you know, I don't know, I said, hey, we're not approved. So you're right. We've got to come together. We got a different, our DA,
And
our civil DA chief
yes.
has been at all of the meetings, with them, their attorneys, and all. And he has done a great job in vetting just what you said, what the law is between cities and counties in terms of how we can put language in there to go forward. So it's been a whole different deal. But we've held all the meetings. All I'm saying to you is that we were not derelict in putting in those dadgum residential streets. What I did is once I found them on my road deal, then that's when we moved to, because the homeowners association and others had not done not only the monitoring what they were supposed to do. Number two, there were a number of other things they hadn't done.
Well,
When you say we weren't derelict, my understanding is that not Chief De Los Santos, but his predecessor approved the width of those streets.
No. Well, his predecessor may have, but it was
a
again,
joint effort with City, Lancaster.
Well, I understand, but
we abdicated our responsibility on that. That's basically what happened.
Yeah.
So
And
we gave
that's what
the
we're
city of
not doing
Lancaster the authority
anymore.
to design it the way they designed it.
And
That's
we-
basically what happened.
And we signed off on it. I mean, let's be honest.
Well, we did.
yes.
Not the people sitting here today, but, well, some.
No, I did.
Yeah.
I did, and we did it because again, it's a mud. I mean, we didn't have we could have not signed off on it. They could have still did it under ETJ.
Well,
Yes,
again,
they could have done it
Sign
without.
off. Let's be honest, we did sign off.
Commissioner.
Through
They
that-
could have done it
through
without
his-
us.
I understand,
They're ETJ.
but we did
Commissioner.
sign off on it.
oh, Ms. Blair.
Commissioner, they requested a variance. That's what they did. And they went to the city with the variance, and then they brought it back to us. And we basically, because of the variance, we basically approved it because they went through the city and
It
came
was
back
the
to us.
city.
Yes.
But it was their ETJ. They had.
Yeah, we had to go through, and they had to get a
Why haven't we
variance,
signed
and
off?
and then the city had to agree
But
to
it
it.
was approved, Ms. Blair.
It was approved.
Well, and that is the point, Commissioner Price. That's not happening anymore. You know, approving those variances, and I totally understand what Commissioner Price and Commissioner Cantrell are saying. In the past, we didn't have the staff, we didn't have the organization, but this is coming and biting us. And the reason it's biting us because obviously for the municipality, there's no downside on this. They don't have to annex it, they don't have to do anything. Now, what is happening to us? Now we have to take care of all those inspections and all those investigations. And in the long run, it's not only not going to benefit the county, it's not going to benefit any of those constituents that go and live there where they buy there. And for the developer, well, I hate to say, it's just about money. They don't care if in 9 years of the expansion of Loop 9, they're gone.
But we do get dollars associated with the inspections.
Well,
why
I
wouldn't
mean,
we just
you
turn
know,
down
I
everything
think the
they want?
headache will be bigger than the price from
Why
the
wouldn't we
inspection.
just turn down everything they want and just don't have any development out there?
I understand we cannot do that, but we can,
like
you know,
to
go
have some-
ahead and be part of the process
know what
and
we
make
can-
it work. And that's the idea of this
And make
briefing.
it work for the long run, because the reality is
Exactly.
Bear Creek is now our neighborhood. It's an unincorporated, and we're responsible for it, so we have to make sure, and it's a beautiful neighborhood. I mean, it's a beautiful neighborhood, and we want to make sure it stays that way, so we have to be involved from this point going forward. So we've got code issues, we've got issues that these guys need to patrol and look at, we've got the sheriff's department out there on a regular basis, things, as Commissioner said, they were at every meeting also with us, so it's our community now. We want to make sure
Exactly.
it's a nice community. We don't
And
want it to be...
with these colleagues, we are, you know, getting ready for the future.
Right.
You know, we already have the results of not being involved and advocating to a municipality that really is not completely vested in this development. So in the future, Dallas County is coming to the forefront, and we're going to negotiate with the idea, like unincorporated areas, that hopefully in the future is such a beautiful development that they would like to annex it.
That's right. That's right. And Commissioner Price did put them on notice. If we go forward with Bear Creek 3, or I guess they're phase 2 or phase 3, that it's going to look real different from the current Bear Creek in terms of our
Michael
involvement.
says it may already be platted, so.
It is.
Is there any way that we can get those streets a foot wider?
Well, that's a good point. The issue is now that it's platted where Loop 9 is coming through. So
That's
our.
So it's moved anyway?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
But they do own a lot of other property out there, all the way up to the county line, so.
On the property all the way to Ellis County.
Exactly.
All the way to Ellis County.
Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Martin, Fire Marshal, and obviously to the new members of the staff, because the next pages explain what we're going to do. And I know, Mr. Grace, you've been emailing me, Commissioner, what exactly you want to see. Well, I want to see the fine writing in the next pages, which you're working on right now, because that's where the small print is going to be. And I mean, I just want a Commissioner, and I don't want to go over your head. I know you represent that area, you know, but I know that we've been working on this for several months now, since we start having the first complaints.
Tell me
And,
for I wasn't working on it the last several months.
yeah, I mean, you were and I was here.
Yeah, I was
And
working.
I always work.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, with that being said, I mean, I look forward working with the staff into developing some of those guidelines.
And I represent that area too, and I appreciate the work you guys are doing, and
You haven't been in any of the meetings.
I've been in a bunch of meetings.
I appreciate the
Not
efforts too,
meetings that
because
you
it helps
were at.
Dallas County residents, so thank you.
And y'all are receiving our monthly reports of all the
Absolutely.
cases
Yes.
that we're.
And I have been.
But I mean, and Fire Marshal, the monthly reports are fantastic, but most of the time, you know, it does say what just happened. You know, I want to be in the forefront, not so much after we approve it. So, like Commissioner Price said, you know, I mean, somebody else pop out. I don't want to see the pop outs. I want to be sure the pop outs don't come out.
Well, yeah, just the area, just the area to cover is just incredible.
I do get also his patrol reports where a lot of stuff comes out of, so I can share those with you, with the court also.
And
so.
very, very important that we don't have repeats of what happened at Bear Creek, because, you know, we're voting today on an order to stripe the side of the street so that our fire trucks can get through. The homeowners association has been surprisingly relatively unupset about it, although some homeowners are upset. Understandably.
But they've been at every dead gun
Right.
meeting.
But at the same time, I mean, it's an imperfect situation now because we got this street that's too narrow to get a fire truck down. But as we move forward, this should not happen again, because with our ability to work with the Lancasters and DeSoto's and every other place in the world, we ought to be able to get the streets wide enough. We ought to be able to get some of these things resolved. I also appreciate the work that I'm seeing y'all are doing with the least among us in the unincorporated areas, where we're not finding ways to cite people for being poor. We're trying to help people who've lived there for a long time and are just getting by.
Yeah, well, this is really not about, that, it's not about, we would never deal about citation. It's about compliance, number one.
Right.
And number two, it's health and safety. It's health and safety. I mean, when we drive out there, or they have to get on a boat and go down the Trinity River to see what the heck people are pushing into the river, we go down there on a Friday, and it's a vacant lot. Hell, we go back down there on a Sunday, there's a house. No, there's a house. No, there's a house. Now, I'm not talking about a trailer house. I'm talking about a house.
A
They have
structure.
poured a foundation. They have roughed it in.
Yeah.
They put up the
1,200.
wall. There's a house in 3 days. Like I said, no, like I told them, the only place I've ever seen that is in Kingdom Hall. No, Jehovah Witnesses. They go in on a Friday. They go in on a Friday and on Sunday they have in church.
As crazy as that sounds, I believe you.
No.
I've seen it
But
happen.
we're seeing it. We're seeing it in some of our and it's amazing. I'm serious. I'm talking about a house. So so I told them, I said, well, and they just can't patrol with the people they've got. They really almost need to double their, by the time they drive, and you don't have much up in Rowlett, Saks or whatever that little area, you got a little piece up there. But by the time they drive around, it's a half a day.
Well, and I think, Commissioner, that as you say, it's health, safety, quality of life is what I will add. And as we develop forward, I totally agree with you, Commissioner. If we need more staff, I mean, we're being prudent with our resources right now. I think right now the main message is to start negotiating with all the, the neighbors around the unincorporated area and start being vigilant. And the message out there is that we're here, we're ready to go, we're really to make it work within what it goes with health, safety, and quality of life.
Right.
So thank you again. I
Thank
can't
you.
wait.
Thank you.
What's the timeline for the next part?
Well, right now, like I told them, we're getting ready for budget. They're moving, but as I said, and I think we talked to Mr. Martin about phasing them in. But budget. Ryan needs to understand that in this department, from a staffing standpoint, we need some people on the ground. And I hadn't even gotten into, we keep talking about Lancaster, so since we're talking about it, Beckley Heights and Ewell Gardens,
Well,
it is, the only thing I haven't found out there from weekend is a body.
I think there's
A couple of things, and I think what you're getting at is, when are the regulations coming forward? The subdivision
Correct.
regulations, street
The new
naming and addressing regulations.
permitting process,
Right, and all of those will be coming forth.
coordinated patrols,
Right.
the
they're doing
procurement database, and
They're
then
working
the development codes.
Right.
Without the development codes, we will not be able to move this
That's
forward.
right, that's right. Mr. Grace's first order of business is to get with Public Works and get those subdivision regulations before the Commissioner's Court. Public Works has worked on a great deal of those already, so our next thing is to finish those up, get that before the court. The street and addressing thing before the court. So within the next 3 to 6 months, we'll have all those things done, all of those new regulations done. In the meantime, I've asked these guys to put together a patrol plan, because I want to see what the patrol plan is for the entire area over a 24/7 basis. And then we can determine from that what we need going forward.
Correct.
So that's what they're working on immediately. So I'll have that for you
Fantastic.
guys.
And one thing that I didn't think about, but is here that I really like, and no pressure on Commissioner Price, planning for each of the 14 unincorporated communities land use. I love that one.
It's the forward-thinking part of all of this.
And that's the difficult. That's not going to be an easy task. So,
Yeah, but there are models you can at least,
Okay.
And I would love to see the minutes as well. Thank you so much, Mr.
yeah, keep
Martin.
us apprised, please.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Marshall.
All right, let's take up, let's see, we got our consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda? So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. We'll now consider the bid. Is there a motion on the bid?
So moved.
Second.
Give her just a second. motion was by Commissioner
Daniel,
Daniel, and
second by me.
seconded by Price. We got it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And
Next,
I do want to say on that award, on that, did they increase it? I couldn't tell.
Which award?
No, on the award.
On the bids?
No, it's only one. It's only one.
Yeah.
Yeah, did they increase?
Risk
Did
building.
all I guess I'm asking is, all the risk, building, contents, property insurance, did it
Increase?
increase?
I would have to check with the previous
Okay.
term.
Okay.
So get that data to you.
I'm sorry, I put a note here. I know all weekend you were tired of the notes, so we got you.
we'll now have a public hearing on Dallas County Health and Human Services Annual Public Housing Agency Plan for fiscal year 18. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, will you lead us through this hearing?
Judge Commissioners, as required by HUD guidelines, Dallas County Health and Human Services published in the Dallas Morning News on March the 11th, 2017, the public hearing notice, as well as an opportunity for residents to come and give input. That input was allowed for 45 days. We followed the HUD guidelines as outlined in the changes that were made on page 3 of the briefing document.
I saw an email that was generated. We are not allowed by HUD guidelines to target vouchers.
No, we've never had. I think the question always come up is, I mentioned it came up all the time. As far back as Judge Kelleher, we had a discussion about where you could do targeted housing vouchers. Based on when we opened up our housing list, we stated what the requirements were, and there was no stipulation to do any special population.
Right, exactly. But not only is there no stipulation, we are not allowed.
Well, we're a housing agency. I think I've said that for the last 21 years, that we're not a housing authority.
Right.
And so sometimes I get confused when someone talks to someone at a housing authority.
Thank you, Mr.
Is that the end? Are there any public speakers? Are there any public speakers? Are there any public speakers?
Make a motion that we close the.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we will take up court orders 1 through 38 and addendums 39 through 49. Is there a motion on that?
I'll move it.
And I second.
Have a revision immediate to the rest of court order 42.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Revision to the policy excludes employees covered by the Sheriff's Civil Service Commission grievance procedures. This is specified by the DA as the language of court order 42.
All right, everyone's heard that. Any discussion on the court orders?
And no, and Sister Justice were here earlier, as I said, both Mr. Bazan, Mr. Martin, everybody did answer all the questions. We're only going to get $60,000 back from the state. Just want to be clear on the record. And we would have had to upgrade those microphones anyway.
We've done them all for the
rest of the courts. I just want to be.
This one now because of the
Right.
And the other issue that came up from some of my questions too was the fact that this was delayed because of the water leaking that we had in the building for a long time. So the cabling and a lot of this couldn't be done on time. So we're ready to move it, and thank you to Judge Evans and all the other judges. Also, I just wanted to make some comment, and this is mostly for my colleagues at the Commissioner's Court, but obviously it's public record. Item 10 and 11, you all got a brief update from Mr. Bazan of where we are in records building. I know Commissioner Daniels was with us at our last briefing. It's just, pretty much a resume and where are we, an update for all of you to see where are we. I want to thank him and obviously Mr. Martin and Mr. Brown, everyone that has been involved with the remodeling. I think we're moving forward, we're on time, we're under budget, and we just keep knocking on wood that we'll continue to go as we're going. So thank you again, Mr. Martin, Mr. Bazan. That's
Any
it.
further comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now hear from our public speakers. Will the bailiff please read the rules of decorum for our public speakers?
All Commissioner Court attendees are hereby advised that this meeting is conducted in accordance with the provision of the Dallas County Code, Section 74-71. Visitors and registered speakers are to preserve order and decorum at all times. Personal, profane, or slanderous remarks are not appropriate and will not be allowed at any time during this public meeting. Any and all applause is to be kept brief in observance of time constraints. Disruptive visitors and registered speakers may be removed and are subject to the penalties provided in the state of Texas Penal Code Section 38.4201 and 42.05. Registered individual speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and the maximum discussion of any one topic is limited to 30 minutes.
Our first public speaker is Mr. Richard Sheraton.
Good afternoon. Long session. Rich Sheridan, 3817 Vanette Lane, Dallas, Texas. Here to talk about how Dallas County might be able to protect its illegal immigrants. I believe that we're now in a crisis situation because of new state law, SB 4. And Dallas County has until September 1st, there was a report that was November 1st, but it's coming up soon, to come up with ways to protect its illegal immigrants. The law states that local police are required to work with ICE and allow police to inquire about the immigration status of people that they lawfully detained. Local authorities are forbidden from adapting policies that prevent a police officer from asking about a person's immigration status. Sheriffs, constables, police chief, and other local leaders can be slapped with a Class A misdemeanor and possibly jail time. They could be fined for $1,000 for first offense and up to $25,000 for subsequent infractions. Will this new law discourage illegals who are victims of crimes or who witness crimes from contacting the police? Police are not required to ask about the immigration status of anyone lawfully in their custody, but the new Texas law makes it legal to do so. The devil is in the details. Are illegal immigrants good for our country? Here's what famous economist Milton Friedman had to say. Before 1914, and my grandparents benefited from this, we had free immigration policy. It was good then, and why isn't it good now? Actually, it is good today because illegal immigrants don't qualify for welfare for medical care, according to Mr. Friedman. They take jobs that most Americans won't work at. Bad laws make socially advantaged acts illegal, which in general leads to undermining of morality. Another economist, Raul Hinojosa, had this to say: if you took away the illegal immigrants, it would be the worst economic disaster in United States history. This was confirmed by a fairly good movie, A Day Without a Mexican. And also read on the reverse side what D Magazine's Wick Allison had to say about illegal immigrants. It was in this magazine article, which don't judge a magazine by its cover. Actually, Mr. Allison back then was in favor of illegal immigrants. So here we are in Dallas with the police morale being at its worst in many years, with police leaving the city as never before, with a police population much lower than it should be, with police, some officers saying that Dallas is now a very dangerous place to live, and the state, the governor, is requiring police to divert their attention from really important crimes. Briefly, what can Dallas County do to protect its quote-unquote illegal immigrants? Ask the cities within Dallas County to have the police in the 24 cities not to ask about the immigration status of anyone in their custody because it looks like it's an option. Have our county sheriff, and I think county sheriff is already doing this, to refuse to turn over to ICE anyone brought to jail considered to be an illegal immigrant but not a hardened criminal. Unpaid traffic tickets, and issue identification cards. I think this is very important for illegal immigrants, which state that they had a criminal background check and that they are a resident of Dallas County. Anyone who lives in Dallas County who doesn't have a picture ID is in trouble. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Loris Phillips.
Judge, you gonna get it going?
My name is Dolores Phillips, address 3101 Luxor Way, Dallas, Texas 75233. A police officer cannot arrest someone under suspicion and say, I'll arrest you because I knew you were going to steal. They have to wait until it actually happens. I can stand here to say this is the most massive cover-up ever committed in America's history, and you're all the mask for it. I'm going to be the one to humbly endure it because just as everyone said it was not going to be done, it's getting done. The United States Department of Justice had to go to Ferguson and these other states to thoroughly, microscopically, telescopically investigate to find out the connections of courts, police officers, and mayors. When I was taken to Green Oaks, it was premeditated. You're looking at what led up to Green Oaks. Gunshot to my truck July 19th. 2 non-minority females warned me of a incident that would happen on Cockrell Hill. That's my normal way of traveling then and it is now. I'm not afraid to live and I'm not afraid to transition. In this massive cover-up from 2008 was the first time I contacted the FBI. I had my assignments detached from Blackboard after successfully submitting the assignments up to UTA being kicked out of the social work department and the criminal justice department because I refused to open. I want them to also know that the females here beyond race who are well connected unleashed the most massive same-sex sexual harassment ever known. And that to my sisters, I love you beyond your sexuality. But you can't be over here protesting about your equal rights and no, we want equal pay and equal treatment when you're not only committing sexual harassment, but you're committing it against another woman and women because this is broad. So it's either you're going to be for equal rights for women or not. You can't condone it and enable it. But as far as the FBI, I want to say this. The FBI was also railroaded. That sounds funny coming from a minority. When you look at ex-FBI Director James Comey on the hot seat for a conspiracy that he don't even have the clue that is bigger than big. Dallas FBI assisted DPD in a massive cover-up that's ongoing, and Corporal Cotner, the arresting officer of October 25th, 2013, is a part of a massive cover-up. You're looking at the documents now. When I earned these degrees, I did not go to school to be educated because I've learned in basements and cellars in Highland Park as a child what I'll never receive in college. So to my common sense, I need you to know them degrees that I earned means absolutely zero, nothing to me. But because I was taken to Green Oaks for the mayor and Dallas Police Department and the other connections to obstruct justice by intercepting court documents, I'm going to be here and at the city council every opportunity I get to say what happens to a minority and a poor person beyond race when they speak of injustices. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Robert Ciccarelli. Good afternoon, Robert.
Good afternoon, everybody. Robert Ciccarelli. I came here today, the title says Probation, Addiction, and Jail. As everyone should know, I do have a problem with crack cocaine. I recently used, and I'm getting very, very desperate about what to do about it and what to do with the rest of my life. I am hoping I get some ideas today or the next couple of days from the people here that might know more than I do on how to treat this addiction. My problem is with money. Every time I get a check, a paycheck, I use it like a child has candy. I got to stop. I got to stop now. When I put down here probation and jail, I am, in the next couple of days, if I don't get any good ideas, I will be doing a crime on purpose to get off the streets and try to get probation. The probation I want is something that's very, very strict as far as the money situation, where I would write the check out to somebody else through the courts and put into an account. And someone would give me so much money where I could talk about it to the person before I start this probation, if I get it. But in the meantime, I'm very serious about doing a crime. It's not going to be. It's going to be nonviolent. It's going to be not any graffiti or any destruction of property. It's going to be a state jail felony, and I'm very serious about this, about fighting this addiction to the best of my ability. It might take my life one day, very, very soon. I don't want it to happen, but I'll let you know this addiction is real. And I'm just hoping today that the court can give me some ideas before I make this decision and do it the next couple of days. You have my phone number in front of you. I would hope that someone would speak to me about this, because I really believe I can really help out the city with homelessness and education, but I don't want to do something stupid to my life to end it. I'm very serious about this right now. I need help. Any ideas you can give me, I want some advice. And I love the city, and I love really helping out the city very much, but I need to fight this addiction very, very to my fullest ability. Thank you very much.
We don't normally, Robert? Hang on.
Ms. Shea and
These two people are going to, or these three people actually may be talking to you to try to help you. And, so don't leave without talking to them. Who's going to?
Lynn Shea and
Do you know Shay? So over there where Shay is, those other two people.
We need to know PC if right, that's right. No PC.
Thank you. All right, our next public speaker is Ms. Laura Jenkins. Ms. Laura, oh, there you are.
Laura Jenkins, 8101 Canyon Oak Drive, North Richland Hills. I have some good news today. For the last 11 years, I've been working for my son on injustice. He's been in jail for 11 years for intoxication manslaughter and 2004 death of Grapevine police officer Darren Medlin. Without diminishing our condolences to the Medlin family, our son was not drunk. Instead, he had an epilepsy seizure causing a horrific accident. The last of March and during I was protesting, and I had a sandwich board sign that said, FBI, the Department of Justice. And while I was doing my protesting, two really profound events happened. The first one was a young man, or a black man. He stopped and he said to me, he says, can I pray for you and your son? And I said, of course you can. So he prays for me and my son, and he ends the prayer with, within 3 months, your son's going to be home. And my son's coming home on July 5th. I found that out 15 minutes ago when I went outside. And also while I was there, I've been trying to get the FBI to assist my son and me. This FBI agent came up to me and he said, tell me your story. So I gave him my little handout. And then he said, may I take your picture? And I said, sure. Well, after that, a week and a half, my son received a letter from the Tarrant County Conviction Integrity Unit. Actually, it was from Tarrant County DA Sharon Wilson, asking if he wanted the Conviction Integrity Unit to review his case. And of course, we said yes. We said yes, yes, yes. And then we got a letter saying that within 90 to 180 days, we should hear something. So I'm here to report to this group and to whoever wants to hear this story. The whole story is at justiceforwardunion.com, is that protest works, justice works, and prayer works. When you are prayed up, you won't get prayed on, and you just keep on doing what you have to do. Thanks.
Our last registered speaker is Mr. William Hopkins. Mr. William Hopkins. Mr. William Hopkins. I've just been given a document that unfortunately I didn't have before court, and it wasn't sent to us yesterday. There were two people who attempted to register to speak after the time for registered speakers. They are both, one is Mr. Gabe Castro with TXU Energy. One is Mr. Danny Smedley. They both want to speak on electricity procurement. In a perfect world, I would have gotten that information while we were discussing that. Our rules are, though, if there's unanimous agreement of the court to allow these two speakers to speak, although they did not sign up timely, we can do so. What's the will of the court? All right. So I'm going to take them in the order they were handed to me then. Mr. Danny Smedley.
Thank you. My name is Danny Smedley. I'm with TXU Energy. We currently office in Dr. Garcia's district at 6555 Sierra Drive, Irving, Texas, 75039. I would just like to address a couple of things that were brought up earlier regarding the procurement of electricity, specifically to TXU Energy's agreements, although we weren't mentioned in the conversation. There were some things raised, and I'd like to address that. One of the comments made was an electricity contract we currently have with the City of Dallas. The comment made was that our rate was higher than the rates currently that you're on today or were previously on. And to address that's not factual. The electricity contract the City of Dallas on is, in fact, less than what you currently are paying on your current contract. So just wanted to address that, and then also open up to any questions if you have any.
Sure, we're able to ask any questions at this stage. Him being a speaker. I don't know.
You can't, I don't think.
I don't have this very quickly. Normally, if a speaker speaks on a matter that was not posted, he could only basically recite county policy, et cetera, or tell them that it will be posted on another agenda.
It was posted.
This matter was posted. He, I guess, signed up to speak to it late. I will just check very briefly, but right now I don't think there's any issue with you talking or responding to it since it is a posted matter. But let me just check really quickly.
Well, and I know the answer to that. There's not a problem if any of you have a question for him because it was posted. Does anyone have a question for Mr. Smedley? All right. Thank you.
No, I don't have a question. Did you hear all the presentation?
Yeah. Yes, sir, we did.
Okay. I would just ask, other than what you just responded to generate, if there's anything that you think other than the fact that there was a misstatement of the rates. If you heard it all, I'd like to see a narrative with regards to what you heard.
Would you like to hear the narrative or receive a summary?
No, I generate it.
Yes, sir.
No, I want to.
We can absolutely do that.
And sent to all of us.
Yes, and send it to all of us.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
And you might want to look at that. I may have misspoken, but I don't think that I said that, or anyone here said that the rates were lower. I don't know what the rates Dallas is paying, and I don't think anyone else in this room does either. So either you misheard it or someone misspoke, because I don't think...
It was mentioned that the rates were higher.
It was a point of mine, and that was referring to at the point in time the City of Dallas left, that they did their own RFP.
It was mentioned
that their rates ended up coming in higher than what P3 was providing at that time.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
DISD
a long time ago.
understanding too.
This would be back around 2009, I think.
Correct. That's right.
And clearly, I don't have any idea what the City of Dallas rates currently
Yeah, I could find out if it's, I'm sure you know.
Yes, sir.
But, all right, so, well, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Who is the other guy? He's also with TXU. And our last public speaker today is Mr. Gabe Castro.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Gabe Castro. I am the Vice President of Business for TXU Energy. As Danny mentioned, we office in Irving, 655 Sierra Boulevard. I would like to thank all of you for your attention and for the opportunity to speak and address some of the things that were discussed earlier. A little bit of clarity in and around the facts or points that were made, I think are important so that you have a full perspective. First, I recognize that we have been very persistent and diligent in terms of trying to pursue the business for Dallas County. Unfortunately, I hope that's not meant to be as complaining, but more to challenge the status quo of the procurement method and process that's been in place for some 15 years. The market has evolved significantly, as have procurement methodologies. It is a somewhat antiquated model. Your question, Mr. Price, about how big is Dallas, the county of Dallas, relative to their portfolio, you probably represent about 10% of their load. Said another way, you're very big. The size of the load of Dallas County in and of itself warrants a great deal of attention, and there's a significant opportunity for customization. And that's where I think there's opportunity to be better understood with a product and price that captures more of what a progressive county like Dallas wants and needs. Whether it's 100% sustainable and green, which we have, whether it's a product and price that also allows for a retailer like TXU to invest dollars back into the county. Be clear, we would give dollars back to the county to reduce consumption, to change out lights, to put in controls. These types of offerings are not accounted for in the RFP that Mr. Lee spoke about. It is a very basic, plain vanilla, let's push everybody into a box and we'll standardize it because it's a simplistic way to evaluate. We believe there's much more value in customization, as evidenced by the number of cities and counties across Texas who have opted out of aggregation since market open. As a citizen of this county, I live here. I think it's in your best interest. You have nothing to lose to pursue an alternative and parallel path. I'd also like to address the fee. You referenced the fee of $55,000 approximately that you pay P3. That is true. That is an annual fee. So that occurs for the life of your agreement. So it's not just $55. You're paying $165,000 to even $250,000. That fee could be cut in half on a one-time negotiated base with a consultant. I don't see any problem. I think it's very plausible. I think there are many consultants who have a high degree of integrity and professionalism and expertise that can help navigate this path. Also, I'll talk about the fact, and I'll brag about our company, what we do with the county. We are very proud of our TXU Energy Aid program. For the last 15 years, we've given over $25 million that have helped citizens of our community. Dallas Health and Human Services alone has received a very significant portion of that. We are proud of our partnership with the county, incredibly proud of what we do across not just this area, but also throughout Texas. So in closing, I would like to tell you that we have a very outstanding offer that would take the city to be 100% green, matching progressive companies like Facebook, 7-Eleven, and others. It would provide dollars to invest back into this county so that dollars can be repurposed into staffing issues or other items where we have challenges. Those are dollars that are coming from TXU. In addition, you would be avoiding the annuity fee of the P3 aggregation group. I think our contribution and what we do collectively stands for itself, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Castro? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Castro, for being here. And I think that we all are very aware of how good of community partners you have been through in the last 50 years.
Thank you.
I mean, not only with Health and Human Services Department, within a lot of the organizations that we all work with, and, you know, we're definitely partners as well. But, I mean, as you all know, I mean, I was very clear after our meeting that I would like to see and want you to meet with staff to express what were the savings. You mentioned that there would be another way of doing this business. I understand that you met with Mr. Martin and your team met with Mr. Heichel and
Correct.
met with Mr. Brown, and I met with you and corresponded with you.
Yes.
I never saw any of those numbers. And as a commissioner, I would think I expressed to you that it was very important for me to have a baseline of
Understood.
how much those savings will be.
And if I could reply, we just received the information from the county in the past week and a half. We had asked for the information so that we could appropriately price the county. It would be irresponsible for me to go out and provide a price based on information I did not have.
Just a moment.
Don't go into pricing.
Yeah,
It's not, sorry, speaking in generalities of the concept of pricing. Understood. I apologize. Yes, sir. So to
That's
that
it,
end,
Mr. Castro, I mean, the opportunity was there. I'm sorry it was too late for you.
no, I don't think the opportunity was there, Dr. Garcia, because we never received the information to provide the county with an accurate portrayal of pricing. It would have been very irresponsible of me and my company to provide a price without the exact fingerprint of how you use power. That's the difference. We're not putting it into a box of we're not buying toilet paper at Sam's. This is power, and the way the county uses it is very unique, and we can customize a solution that makes the most sense. Yes, sir.
I've got a question, Mr. Castro. So, and I want to echo Dr. Garcia's comment that you're a great community partner. And probably not happy with me right now, but you're a great community partner. But I'm hearing what you're saying, that you think we could do better outside of aggregation, that perhaps we could cut some fees, perhaps we could get a lower price for our energy. Even assuming all those things turn out to be true.
Yes, sir.
Right? You were notified that we had an RFP out.
Yes, sir.
And you were given an opportunity to bid. Why didn't you bid?
Can I speak about the RFP? Speaking generalities, and if you interrupt me if I misstep.
RFP, you did not bid on the RFP, correct?
That's correct. I'll go into the reasons why.
And the information is public as to the RFP. So yes, you can discuss the
Okay.
RFP.
So the RFP, if you haven't read it, it's probably worth the 20-minute perusal of the document. It's a very narrow-scoped, or a very narrowly written, scoped document. Mr. Lee references that we could have bid individually, but yet there's many contradictions within the document that say if you do not comply with bidding as we prescribe, which they prefer to break up groups and show them in different buckets, it's an interesting perspective and an interesting way to procure, then we would be non-compliant. So even though there were words given to us, bid directly, show us the individual price, everything within the document itself flew in the face of that statement. It was never rewritten. There was never an amendment provided to the RFP. If I could provide you with a price just for Dallas County, and I knew that we were going to get a fair shake with respect to how they would evaluate, I wouldn't have a problem. But everything in that document, we read through it millions of times. We couldn't rationalize how we would be compliant with their request, while there were so many points within the document itself that were contradictory.
And did you ever contact them to discuss that before deciding not to bid?
We did make
I think it was discussed that there's been a broad amount of people who have come to the table to bid on that, and you haven't.
Correct.
But that's it. You just looked at it. You saw it didn't look good to you, so.
Yeah, we believe there's a better opportunity and a better solution for Dallas County than what's being prescribed there.
I understand, but you are the VP of, and I don't want to argue with you. I'm just
I'm not
trying to
argue, sir.
understand
Sorry.
this, because you're the VP of business for TXU.
Yes, sir.
You're not the VP of business for Dallas County. So there was an opportunity to sell a whole lot of your product to us and a whole lot of other people, but you didn't bid. And I'm hearing you're saying there's something in the contract that we should all go read that you didn't like, so you didn't bid on it. Is that the answer?
I think that's a portion of the answer, sir. I think part of it is more encompassing to respect to how we think we can help solve a solution individual customer by individual customer, not the aggregation group methodology.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only way we're going to change it is by bidding.
Well, I guess the bottom line I see is that
Yes,
there
ma'am.
was the opportunity to bid on the RFP for the state contract. And then the other option was, or another option is to address county by county, and therefore we had a decision also. And it looks as if each party has made a decision as far as the directions that we'll be taking.
That's a fair point. The only thing I would say is I don't believe, and I think you could each stand up and tell your constituents, we have nothing to lose by pursuing a parallel path, and may the best company win. And what would be the best solution for the city, especially in this time or this county, in times of dollars that are needed?
Okay. And just to make the
Is there a proviso whereby he keeps talking about parallel?
there is not. So the path, just to make it clear, the path for us is to choose whether we want to go out and competitively bid through an aggregator, whether we wanted to go out and competitively bid as a sole county, or whether we want to do a sole source contract like the city of Dallas did with this provider or another provider. We chose to do an RFP with an aggregator, P3, and there's not a way for people outside of the RFP to bid against the low price in the RFP, just like every other RFP in the county of Dallas. There's not a mechanism to do that.
Right.
I think it's very unfortunate that y'all didn't stand up and ask to speak when Mr. Lee was here this morning, and that way we could have had, some
We thought the
give and take.
documents had been passed across to the judge, so
But
it
it's-
says he pointed out it was bad timing.
But you also did this in Harris County, is that correct? I mean, you tried to get them to get out, and you were going to bid them separately, and
And we're
I think
still-
CUC told you could bid them separately too, is that correct? And then things didn't go?
I think that's generally true,
Okay,
correct.
so-
But Galveston County is also the one who left P3, and we're working with them as well. Scurry County also left. There are a number of other cities and counties that left other aggregation groups. So
Okay, which counties were those?
Galveston County,
Okay. Those would be a good test.
yes, they will.
Galveston and who else?
Scurry, Scurry.
And how big is Scurry?
Pretty dang darn small, 'cause neither one of us were.
Well, Galveston County's rivals. But I mean,
You're not doing any type of guarantee with them that you'll guarantee their rates will be lower than the CUC aggregate? I mean, this P3 aggregate?
no, I couldn't do that, nor could they, right? It's part of numbers don't lie, people lie with numbers, so I'd be really careful about the valuation that are
When you say
provided.
You can do better than what the aggregate does. You won't
I think-
guarantee that.
Can they guarantee they beat my price? I think we'd have to go,
But
we'd have to
you're
understand
asking
the
us to
bid,
get
sir.
out of the aggregate because you can do a better price.
You a more accurate price for your load. I think we'd be very,
Accurate price.
very, very competitive. And when you take the full picture of what we do,
Okay, but it could be higher, is what you're saying.
it could be higher, could be lower, it could be the same. We think, based upon the most recent information we've seen from pricing, that we would be more competitive today. I cannot promise you that, sir.
That's correct, and that's the problem.
And they can't promise it the other way, Dr. Garcia.
Well, Mr. Castro, you have your chance. Thank you.
We did have a chance.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Mr. Price. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And so now we're going to adjourn for our closed session as covered by Chapter 551 of the Government Code to discuss those matters as previously posted. Now, any action as a result of that closed session will take place in the subsequent open session. Mr. Grace. Mr. Grace.
feel that anyone should feel intimidated or
He posted the other, so he posted the other.